Hello. I think okay, cool. We're live. We have people watching. Where's the comment section? Sorry guys, I'm new to this thing. Oh, there we go. Cool. Yay, we're back. Welcome back to my live stream. For those who do not know me, I'm Kirby. I'm a historian, and in today's live stream, we'll be talking about the Bakunawa, the Eclipse, and the many different dragons in the diverse, mythologies of the Philippines. And yeah, so if you're joining us from wherever you are, like always, please let us know in the comments whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube where you're watching from, so we know where everybody's at. Because I'm in California, and our guest today is all the way from the East Coast and the other end of the U.S. And yeah, so let us know in the comments who's watching from where, and I'll highlight some of them and give you all the shout out. Yeah, so today again we're going to talk about Bakunawa and dragons and mythology and Eclipse. But before we dive into our topic, this week and next week I'm doing this series of live stream to also raise awareness and funds for our kababayans in the Philippines who are impacted by the recent typhoon. And now let me share the other thing. There we go. Can you all see that? Yeah, there we go. Yan. So again, this live stream is for NAFCON. I'm raising funds for NAFCON, the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns. It's an alliance and a big group of Philippine organizations, institutions, and individuals across the U.S. that respond to the concerns of the Filipinos in the U.S. and in the Philippines. And so yeah, we at NAFCON ensure that the donations directly reach their impact communities in a timely and efficiently manner. As part of Bayanihan Community Response Campaign, we consistently, keep in touch with our partners on the ground in the Philippines, and we partnered with tried and tested local community-based organizations to provide timely and effective assistance to the most impacted communities. And as in past disaster relief efforts like Typhoon Haiyan, we coordinate directly with the community-based people organizations in the Philippines. And last night, in our live stream we raised $420, if I'm not mistaken, during the duration of the live stream for NAFCON. And then the previous night before that, it was $300. So overall, we have about $700 something, $730 that we raised for our kababayans back at home. So maraming salamat to everybody who donated and to everyone who is supporting our fundraisers. Every penny counts. And just to give you an example how much impact a dollar makes. For example, the over $700 that we raise can already provide hundreds of hot meals and somewhere between 500 to 700 hot meals of rice and ulam for the people in the Philippines who are affected by the typhoon in the Visayas. So it's very we're talking about Bakunawa today, and Bakunawa, the mythology came from the Visayas region, and the people in the Visayas need our help. So every penny counts. Again, the link to donate is going to be on your screen in tinyurl.com/2021 typhoons. Let me just double check right now how much the NAFCON fundraiser is doing, and then we'll see how much we raise afterwards. So right now we have $7,031.09 for NAFCON's fundraiser overall across the US, and 700 of that dollars came from our live stream the past couple of days. So yeah, and then so I'll show this in the screen so you know how much we made. So that's how much we have right now. And then after I will check again at the end how much we're gonna make tonight. Cool. I guess that's enough spiel for NAFCON. But yeah, today is gonna be a fundraiser for our kababayans in the Philippines, and we have a very special guest. Let me just something's up with my camera. There we go. Yeah, and so who is joining us from where? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna bring in and introduce our guest. So before I introduce our guest, I'm gonna just talk about who our guest is and what she does. Cool. So tonight's special guest is Ate Ligaya, also known as Mary Joyce Caballes. Did I say that right? Hopefully I did. And Ate Ligaya is known for her works in the Filipino online community on educating and sharing information on the culture, history, and pre-colonial beliefs of the Philippines for over 10 years now. Actually, I've been following her work for over 10 years now. She ran several popular blogs, including Pinoy Culture and Diwatahan blogs on Tumblr, which I followed religiously back then when I was in college. So she's a Filipino American woman from New York of Aquiano and Tagalog descent, and she is also a Filipino reconstructionist following Anituo, a term used to refer to a growing movement to revive the pre-colonial beliefs and practices of the Philippines. And she has been a pagan for 20 years and has been a Filipino reconstructionist for 10 years. She is known for her writings on this pagan, animistic, and polytheistic movement and has been looked up to as a teacher of it. She is currently teaching classes on Filipino Reconstructionism and polytheism and is working toward other projects in regards to this movement. So Ate Ligaya is also currently in the works of writing her first book geared toward Anituo and being a Diwatahan, a Visayan term to refer to those who revere the old deities, the Diwatas. She's also both an artist and a writer who is currently combining both to create a web comic based on pre-colonial culture and beliefs of the Philippines. So without further ado, let's welcome Ate Ligaya. There we go.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you? Can you hear
Welcome.
me?
I'm good. Yes. Can you
Okay.
all hear us? Who's watching? Can you hear us? And let's see. Let's see who are in the comments first. Let's see where they're watching from. Ian Ramos, I'm here. I'll wait. I guess this is before we started. um, Biado says, "Kamusta po?" Shade say, "Good morning or morning to everyone or evening." Someone's watching from somewhere in the Visayas. Mark Anthony
Mm.
Paginbin Anyano. Good morning. Watching from Almagro, Samar. Hey. And someone's watching from Cebu. Danica. Hello from Cebu. I'm just gonna hide a few more. Biado is from South Cotabato. Okay. Wow, Mindanao. Okay. And someone is from Canada. Hello. Oh, hey, I know you. And then good morning or good evening to Gwyneth. Gwyneth has been here yesterday too, and the other day. Yay! So without further ado, let's welcome Ate Ligaya again, and we'll start here. Hi, Ate. Kumusta?
Hi, I'm good. Yeah, I'm very good.
That's good. Thank
I'm
you for
excited.
joining us.
I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. I'm glad you said yes. I guess we can start with if you want to share what do you know about the mythology of the Bakunawa since it became viral recently because of the Miss Universe national costume, which is
Yeah, I saw that. Like, it was really nice.
yeah.
It's like trending like all over.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a lot of beliefs
Hmm.
regarding Bokunawa. Bokunawa is known like in the Visayas, as well as Bicol. Um, Especially like in the Western Visayas, there's
Hmm.
like a lot of beliefs. Like the Western Visayas is where my mom's side of the family comes from. They come
Hmm.
from Aklan.
Oh,
Um,
Aklan.
yeah, Aklan.
Oh yeah,
So
Aklan. That.
yeah. So there's like a lot of beliefs regarding Bokunawa, like
Hmm.
from like the historical records, you always see Bokunawa like being mentioned. And then even into like now to like the 1900s, you see Bokunawa mentioned.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
Panay, there's actually like an almanac, like a farmer's almanac,
Hmm. Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
they mention Bokunawa like in terms of like farming, building the houses. Like there's a certain way. But yeah, it's like really very very interesting.
Yeah.
And then like the term Bokunawa, I actually find it
Hmm.
very interesting because like compared to like the Tagalog and Kampapangan, it's like
Hmm.
what is it, Laho and
Yeah. Yeah.
Lao
Lao,
or
Lao, yeah.
yeah. So it's like you see that the connection with that is with the Hindu Rahu,
Hmm.
but then you have Bokunawa, which is like completely different term.
Different.
So like for the Visayans, they mention like it's a bent snake. That's like what the meaning
Hmm. Oh, that's
that is.
the meaning.
Yeah, that's what the meaning behind that is. And Bokunawa, like everybody knows, Bokunawa is like it devours the moon. It tries to eat the
Hmm.
moon. So that's the
Hmm.
reason why it causes the eclipse. And we actually
Yeah.
have many different like mythological creatures throughout the
Mhm.
Philippines that have this similar story, but different. So Bakunawa in for the Visayas. There's one legend. I think like everyone knows this legend, like with the 7 moons.
Yeah.
Like there was originally 7 moons, and then
Mhm.
Bakunawa like devoured the original 6, and then from there, the people tried to like scare away Bakunawa by banging like pots and pans,
Yeah.
playing like the gongs, like all that,
Yeah.
scare them away. Yeah. Um and yeah, then the other part, like what I mentioned earlier, is with building the houses like in the
Mm.
almanac, so like in the Western
Also,
Visayas.
so it also influenced how they built houses.
Yeah, like
Wow.
they looked at the position, like where Bokunawa is.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout
Mm-hmm.
the year, so it
Yeah.
goes like in a 4 cycle thing throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like from January, February, March, the head of Bokunawa is facing north, right?
Mm.
So when you're
Oh.
building the houses, like when they're building the houses, the belief is that
Yeah.
you shouldn't build the entryway of the house, like the front door or whatever,
Yeah.
facing Okinawa's head, because that would be considered
Oh,
bad luck. And
bad
when I
luck.
was reading up, when I was reading up on that, like this is actually practiced also in like Cambodia,
Mm-hmm.
Myanmar, and where else? Thailand.
Thailand. Yeah.
Yeah, like they
The
have
different.
very, very, very
Similar.
similar practices.
Yeah.
So, and then it goes like counterclockwise. So it's like
Okay.
every 3 months. It's
Yeah.
like Okinawa's head is going like this. So it's like,
Shifting. Yeah. Oh wow.
yeah, yeah. So it's like
So
you just
you.
gotta like watch where like Okinawa's head is, and then that's how they,
Yeah.
plant the buildings and things like that.
You should know where. I guess you should know which month of the year it is before you start building a
Ah.
house.
But like I just find it
That's cool.
fascinating
Yeah.
how like when the Spaniards arrived, our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors like they already they were talking about Bokunawa, like that's how widely popular
Mm-hmm.
like the myth was,
Bakunawa. Yeah.
to the point where they
Yeah.
talked about it in Spanish, like, the Spanish records. Fast forward so many years later, it still
Mm-hmm.
persists. So I find that really
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. You said the 19th century, so they're still writing about Bakunawa. So
Yeah.
that's how it still survives. The beliefs around Bakunawa is still very much alive even after Christianity was,
Yeah.
overwhelmingly present in the Philippines.
Yeah. It's still,
Yeah.
alive. And then um how we're doing actually the fundraiser for like the
Mhm.
typhoon. Not a
Yeah.
lot of people like actually know this part. Like a lot of people know about Bokunawa being associated with the eclipse. But
Hmm.
Bokunawa, like at least in the island of Panay, because this is actually
Yeah.
what my mom told me, um, earthquakes are actually considered
Oh.
like caused by Bokunawa from like his tail. Because
Oh.
the
Wow.
Western Visayas, Bokunawa is believed to like live in like one of the layers of
Hmm.
like the universe, so like under the
Yeah. Yeah.
sea. So
Yeah.
when he moves his tail, it causes the
Uh-huh.
earthquake.
Or to
When
move.
he yeah, and then when he blows into the
Wow.
water, like he just blows, it causes
Hmm.
typhoon,
Oh,
like
so
through his
so.
mouth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know
like
that.
yeah, not a lot of people know about that bit. And most people know about like Bokunawa like being
Yeah.
associated with eclipse. But
Yeah.
like
Usually eclipse. Yeah.
yeah, but like in terms of like Western Versailles, like that's another belief regarding Bokunawa.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm like coughing here.
It's
But
okay.
yeah, that's really fascinating. I haven't
Yeah.
encountered that part of Bakunawa's mythology, how Bakunawa also causes earthquakes, um,
Hmm.
and typhoons. The
Yeah.
other day I talked about typhoon mythology from the Kapampangan mythology, and it was the
Mm.
other um, being Garuda in other
Mm.
beliefs. So Galura in Kapampangan. So in our tradition back then, I mean, actually, a lot of our elders still believe in that.
Yeah.
Whenever the supreme god Sinokuan is, upset at how society is, he would
Mhm.
send his, um, in a way, he's seen as a punisher or judge, Galura or Garuda, to flap his wings and bring typhoons to cleanse the earth, and for
Mm.
a chance for the Kapampangan people to rebuild. So that's how we saw typhoons. It's also a mythical being that's out there. I'm gonna
Yeah.
look at some of the questions, but feel free to chat. Actually, I have some pictures I want to show the
Oh, sure.
folks. I mean, I gathered some photos of Bakunawa the other day, or
Yeah.
some artwork from like the younger generation, because
Yeah.
it's
There's a
it's
lot of
actually,
artwork now, like Bokunawa. Like it's just
yeah.
amazing.
I got excited when I googled it. Like, oh wow, there's actually a lot.
And like
So
speaking of artwork though,
huh?
like back in our Tumblr days, like I met you through Tumblr, right?
Yes.
So it's like back then, like 10 years ago, there wasn't like a lot of artwork, but like now there's like so much artwork. Like I'm so excited for that. Like there's like this renewed interest in our like
Yeah.
mythology folklore.
Yeah, I remember I always look at your Tumblr to look at artwork to find what's out there right now. Let's look at some of the ones I found online. There we
Mm,
go. So these are three of the different Bakunawa I found online depictions. Can you share with our viewers what you know about the appearance of Bakunawa based on the mythology from your
mm,
family, or what you
yeah.
know from your research? Yeah.
So for the most part, like it's kind of consistent. Like
Mm-hmm.
Bokunawa is seen as this large snake or naga.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I'll actually talk about nagas later if we can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're seen as like this very large snake
Yeah.
that there's actually two beliefs. So some believe that he lives under the sea. There
Mm-hmm.
is another belief that he lives like in another layer, like
Oh.
one of the higher layers, like in the sky. It
Oh. So
depends on the belief. Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, but in terms of like his descriptions, like they have whiskers. He has like two
Mm,
pairs of wings. So
yeah.
there's like one large wing, like one large pair of wings, and then like another smaller pair of wings, like on the
Oh.
side. Um, and it's like what is it, like an ash gray color? Like it's very
Okay.
very
Yeah.
consistent. Yeah, like the
So it's
descriptions.
ash gray. The actual color is ash
Mhm.
gray and bluish tint, no? Or
Yeah,
purple. Bluish
like
purple.
yeah, it's like bluish, grayish, like a very ashen color.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's so
Mhm.
cool. Oh, I guess this is a depiction of Bakunawa with six moons. Wait, seven. There's seven.
Yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
7. Yeah, 7.
I'm trying to find the seventh one. It's there in the corner. Let me see what else I found. Oh, this one I don't know where this is from actually. I couldn't find the artist behind this. It might be a coloring book
Mm.
that somebody scanned their colored version of it. But you can see
Oh,
Bakunawa
that
has
is
a
really
boat.
nice.
Yeah, the boats are there too, traditional boats.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
wonder
really
who created
nice.
this. So, for folks who are watching, if you know who created this and which coloring book this
Yeah.
is from, let
Like, I
us
wanna
know.
know myself too, so I can
Yeah,
follow
the
them.
coloring. Yeah, yeah, cool. So far, it's consistent. It's like a serpent, dragon-like
Yeah.
creature.
Like, very
I guess.
like, there is
Go ahead.
another, like, description. It's more like there's one description that Bokunawa is more like a whale, but, like, majority of the time,
Oh,
it's consistent of being, like, this snake-like,
snake. Yeah.
dragon-like, thing.
I don't know what happened to my slides. I think it's lagging. There we go. But yeah, I guess for a lot of people, so for folks who are not familiar with the mythologies, there are usually different versions of mythology that evolved through time, and so different communities have different way of seeing our deities, our mythological creatures. So yeah, um, because some people are very like angry, like that's not how it looks like. But sometimes
Yeah,
it's different, especially if you cross to the other island. It's a different
yeah, it
description.
varies from,
It's valid.
island to island, so
Yeah,
it's like, you know, descriptions and certain beliefs, in
mhm,
Panay may not be the same in, like, for
yeah,
example, Bicol or
yeah,
Bohol. So there's like different variations. But like
yeah,
in terms of Bokunawa, in physical descriptions, it's pretty consistent throughout the
yeah.
Visayas.
Cool. Um, so Ate Ligaya is based in New York, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, New York.
Cool. Let me know how
Yeah.
long you want it to stay. So I don't want to keep you
Oh,
for too long.
no,
I'm gonna.
I'm available all night as long as
Hey,
possible. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so usually we get questions later on toward the
Mhm,
middle of the first half of the hour.
mhm.
So yeah, feel free to ask us anything you want to ask us about Bakunawa, the moon-eating
Mm,
dragon from the Visayas.
yes.
Um, so yeah, I guess we can, since we mentioned the different moon-eating creatures, deities in different
Mm.
mythologies. Wait, before we go to that, one question: is Bakunawa Diwata in your culture, or where your roots are from? Is he a,
Um,
or is it a? Because I've heard different
he
versions
it
before.
depends on like I've gotten this question. I've been asked this question myself. Like
Yeah.
different people like have different answers. So
Mm,
some people think like they consider Bukunawa as like a diwata.
mm,
Others, they're not a diwata, but they're very like a divine like
mm.
feature. Like it's not like
Feature.
like the aswang. Like they're
Mhm.
considered like a divine feature.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so it
it's
does
I heard,
depend.
yeah. So I heard too that sometimes Bakunawa is benevolent, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
in some cases he's seen as, or the Bakunawa, no gender, is seen as
Yeah.
the enemy of a Diwata, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that too because I remember seeing in some of the old Spanish accounts where they described the Bakunawa as a demon. So
Well,
it just shows how they paint
yeah. The thing with
our
that though, it's like
mythology
they describe everything as a demon.
as something bad.
Like
Yeah.
when they mention Anito or Diwata, depending what who they're talking about, they said demon. Like
Yeah.
in the text, you just have to like ignore those like
Yeah.
extreme biases.
Yeah. So I think that's an advice for folks who want to dig deeper and learn, do their own research
Mm,
on pre-colonial mythology, history of the Philippines. Is when you see these records, a lot of it was written from this biased perspective. So
yeah.
just be critical about it. Don't take it, word for word.
Yes.
There's a comment that I kind of saw. Where is it?
Mhm.
Oh, here. Patrick Mitchell said that my favorite moon-eating monster is Arimao. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Mm, yeah, I
Arimaonga
think it's
the
like
lion.
Monga. That's what
Yeah,
is it? That's Maranao.
Maranao, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think I
that's
have.
for the Maranao. And
This
then there's
might be.
another creature. There's
Mhm.
one for the Bagobo. I forgot which one is which. It's between the
The
Bagobo
crab
and the
one.
Nobo. There's one that's like a tarantula, and then there's
Yeah,
one that's like a crab.
yeah.
I forgot
So I
which
have.
one was which between the two. And then
I
there's
found this.
Minakawa.
Wait, where did
Yeah.
it go? Let me. My slides is not cooperating. It's like moving by itself. um, there
Oh,
we
I
go.
know
So
this
I
one.
found this artwork on I think Facebook by
Mm,
Alfred Ismael Galarosa, or Art of
I love their
Edoy.
artwork.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually very very detailed and vibrant.
Yes.
And so we see here the different kinds of mythological beings that are known as moon eaters or sun
Mm,
eaters. So one is Bakunawa, the first one you see, and then Minokawa is also
mm.
from the Bagobo tribe, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
that's cool.
Yeah, and then the lion one is Arimaonga from Maranao.
Mhm.
And
Maranao.
then I'm not sure what Bawa is from. Have you
Um,
do I have notes about this?
I don't remember if that was
Mm.
another dragon in the Visayas or if it's an
Okay.
Ilocano. I know there's one
Okay.
for Ilocano, but I'm not
Yeah, yeah. I
100%
don't.
sure.
I thought well, from what I know, the Olimao is the Ilocano one, the one right to the farthest next to Laho.
Uh,
Okay,
oh, I actually
yeah,
haven't
but
heard that one.
yeah, but there's a
Yeah.
lot. There's a Tambana. I don't know how to pronounce this. Sorry.
Yeah. That one.
Tambanakawa. I think that's the one that's a
Mm, yeah.
tarantula or crab like
It's a
one.
tarantula, yeah.
Yeah.
There's two of them that's like sounds very, very similar.
Mhm.
Like it's a very similar word. One is a tarantula, one is
Uh-huh.
the crab.
Yeah. That's so cool. So it's like it's
Yeah.
not just serpent dragons that we see. And
Yeah.
then we'll look at Sawa is I think is from it means like this big snake in Tagalog. So it might be Tagalog if I'm not
It
mistaken.
just I don't know where that one's from though.
Yeah. And then Kedu I know is from Maguindanao.
Mm.
Also like a dragon. But I
Mhm.
have some more artwork that I can show while we chat about this different moon eating creatures. So this is I find this very interesting from the same artist. Is it
Yeah.
loading? Oh no, did it load?
It
Oh,
loaded.
where is it? Okay, I think my screen just froze. Yeah, so this one is like he he depicted Bakunawa and Minokawa as fighting
Yeah,
over something
fighting.
in the moon, who gets to eat
Yeah.
the moon. But yeah,
I think like those
this
two, Minakawa and Bakunawa, are like the two most famous in
most
terms of
popular
like
one.
the
Yeah,
clips. Yeah, because even back then, like I was seeing artwork for both of them.
yeah. It's the most common one you can find when you look up moon eating creatures in the Philippines
Yeah,
or beings.
these two.
So here's some more depictions of Minokawa. I can't see if it's loading, so
I know it's loading
there.
for me.
I guess my computer that I'm using right now is from 2012. So back when I
Mhm.
was still at Tumblr. So,
Back in the Tumblr days. Oh my god.
yeah. So yeah, here's some more Minokawa. So Minokawa, the difference is it's also a moon eating, sun eating
Yes,
creature or dragon, but in Minokawa it's more of a bird
like a
as
bird.
opposed
Yeah,
to Makunawa, a
yeah.
serpent.
And then Minokawa, like it's said to be like the size of
Mm.
Bohol,
Oh yeah,
right?
the island, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, yeah, about the size of Bohol.
yeah.
They believe that it lives on, what was it, the sky,
Mm-hmm.
eastern sky,
Mm.
right?
Okay, so Minokawa is yeah.
Eastern or western?
Yeah,
I
I've
forgot
heard
which
of that. Yeah, yeah,
one. And
yeah.
then like from the descriptions that I know of Mikawa, like it has like glassy, like mirror-like eyes, and then
Mm-hmm.
like very very sharp steel-like
Sharp. Yeah,
teeth, and the talons, and then
yeah.
like the feathers are like they're like very sharp, like knives.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I
That's
heard
what I
too.
know
Yeah,
of
so
Mikawa.
it's very deadly.
Yeah, you don't want to mess.
Yeah. I think the next one is let me just come on. There we go. So this one is the Lawu or Laho in
Mm,
Tagalog or Lawu in Kapampangan, and
yes.
so it's depicted differently here. So on one side you see like a with the one with the horns, it looks like a eagle with the lion-looking face. And the other one on the left is a serpent with wings. From what I know
Mm-hmm.
from my elders is that Lau in Kapampangan is actually a serpent dragon. With, it's like a combination of Minokawa and Bakunawa because
Mm-hmm.
the wings is of a bird,
The
the giant
bird,
figure of a bird, but the body itself and the head is of a
the snake.
crocodile dragon.
Mm-hmm.
From what I know, so it's
The
a
best of both
pretty.
worlds.
They I guess they combine the two. Yeah, so it's this one, Laho in Tagalog,
Mm-hmm.
Lawu in Kapampangan, which actually
Mm-hmm.
linguistically speaking, for those who don't speak Tagalog or Kapampangan,
Mm-hmm.
Laho and Lawu means to disappear. So I guess
Mm.
that's how they describe the moon or the sun disappearing
Disappear.
during the eclipse. Yeah. So yeah, the Lawu is also like Minokawa is like a huge, gigantic being that can
Mm.
devour the sun or the moon. There's a longer mythology about it that I can share more when I make the video that I plan on making on how there's a story how um Lawu was born out of Mother Earth. But yeah,
Mm. Sounds interesting. I actually don't
it's
know too
very
much on that one.
yeah, it's like there's a lot that I also want to know about. Here's another artwork from
Oh, yeah, I've
Edoy.
seen this
And
one.
it's like wow, they're like the Avengers, but the
It's
Philippine
all
mythology
the
style. Yeah,
creatures that are associated with Eclipse.
yeah, fighting the bigger Naga. Cool. I think that's mostly of the picture. I think. Wait, hold on. Oh, there we go. The lion one that was mentioned in the comments. I found
Mm.
it too from the
Yeah,
same artist. So great
for the
job.
Matandá.
Yeah, and then I think I might have one more. I think this is the one or his depiction of the tarantula one.
Mm. Is it the tarantula or is it a crab?
Or
This
might be a crab.
crab.
It's like a fat crab with lightning around it.
Mm.
This is so cool. This might be the last slide that I
Oh
have.
no! If it's with the lightning, it's the crab.
Yeah. Okay, so
Because
lightning.
for that one, like they believe
Mhm.
it's also underneath the sea as well.
Okay.
In terms of lightning, like the movement of the eyes, like as it
Yeah.
opens and closes, it causes like little lightning flashes. So that's the crab.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a crab, and I think this one is from the Mandaya ethnic
Mm.
group, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody
I
did.
should
Okay,
double check
cool.
that.
Somebody said yes.
Oh yeah, Mandaya.
Cool. Thanks, Jem. I guess that's actually the last of the pictures that I have. Yeah. Cool. Let me just drink water. Oh wait, I highlighted it. Comment. Oh, Teo, cool. Teo is a student that I when he was in the high school, I was still in college. I met in
Mm.
UC Davis, and he's cool. I'm just gonna mention his last. He's Kapampangan, and his last name
Oh.
means to swallow. Manakmul it means to swallow in Kapampangan. So I guess
Mhm.
it has something to do with the Lawu swallowing the sun. Um, okay, we can go over some of the comments if there are questions.
Yeah.
Okay, someone said sawa in Tagalog means sea snake. Um,
Yeah. Indian snake.
mm,
But the thing with like we actually
yeah,
see like snakes in like a lot of folklore beliefs.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you see it like you see it on the hilts of like the swords.
The swords, yes, that's
Yeah.
the
And
one.
then there's like records of like in the Visayas, like in the what's it the Caracoa. So like the
Mm-hmm,
warships, they would have like
yeah,
carving of, like some type of like serpent,
yeah,
motif. And
yeah.
then what else? I'm like trying to list like all these connections with like serpents and snakes and like
Mm-hmm,
the various like folklore. Um
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
cool. I guess this answered the question.
oh,
This one,
yeah. What's the question? Are these Yeah,
mythological beings.
are they expressed in motifs and
Mhm.
art? Like I said, they're expressed like in a lot of like the carvings,
Mhm.
the swords, the
Yeah,
kampilan.
yeah.
Um,
Even in the well, not necessarily a naga, but the crocodile is also in the
yeah,
what do you call it? In the
crocodile as well.
the Maranao weaving the
Yeah,
patterns.
yeah. Like speaking of patterns, like even like
Mhm.
the tattoo motifs, you see a lot of
Mhm.
like
Oh yeah,
traditional motifs, like
the
not
symphony.
just the tattoo, but or not just with that, but also like in textiles, like clothing
Yeah, yeah.
textiles. You see motifs representing either like a crocodile or
Mhm.
a snake. Like those are the two most like common animals in terms of
Mhm.
motifs.
Excuse me. Where's the other question? Oh yeah, even actually, let me just share more. Even in architecture, in the Torogan, in the royal houses in
Mm.
Mindanao, they have naga as the beam,
Mm.
this iconic beam that they're known
Yeah.
for. And from the research of one of my elders in Pampanga, he found church beams in one of the oldest churches in Pampanga that
Mm.
has actually a naga head in the beam
Ooh,
itself. So I was like,
do you know the
whoa.
name of the church?
If I'm not mistaken, it's Betis Church in Guagua. In
Mm.
it's the church that is I think when the Pinatubo erupted, this is the most famous church. It was buried and it's still open, but it's like buried.
Mm.
Wait, no, that's a different church. But yeah, never mind, different church. Yeah,
Well, let me know, like, when you find out what church, like,
we'll
let me
find out
know.
later. We'll confirm later. Yeah, there's some church beams in like some of the oldest churches in Pampanga that has motifs from pre-colonial
Mm.
mythology, which is very interesting. You know how they still
Yeah.
kept that belief in there, even though it's a Catholic church.
Yeah. But, like, from, like, what I've read, like,
Mhm.
some of the churches, they were actually built on, like, more, like, sacred,
Yeah,
we had no, like, temples per se, like,
yeah,
for example,
yeah,
like, in Cambodia or anything, but, like, they
mhm,
did have certain areas where, like, they built, like, these smaller structures to, like,
yeah,
for the Babaylan or the
mhm,
Catalonan or whatever to,
mhm,
like, give their offerings. So sometimes they did built it on wherever they had those small structures.
yeah,
So that'd be
yeah. That,
interesting to see,
that
like
that's actually a
well, to
trend
date yeah, to
historically
date, like,
for
like, you carbon date, like,
mhm,
the materials that they use
mhm,
for, like, the buildings,
yeah, they're
see
older.
if they could yeah, see if they're older.
Yeah. I read too when I was doing a research on Brunei in the Philippines, in Spain. They actually Manila Cathedral at one point had carvings from the old mosque in Brunei before the Spaniards burned it. So they took out the doors from Brunei and brought it to Manila to put in the church, but it also got destroyed in Manila eventually.
Oh,
But it tells us how even the colonizers they used the materials from our pre-colonial
yeah.
architecture to build whatever they wanted to build.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Any other? Excuse me.
Okay. We were
Okay.
speaking about
Did you?
going back to that question in terms
Uh,
of like the Bakunawa or other Nagas that's shown in like any motifs. It's not with Bakunawa, but Garuda. Like
mm,
yeah, there's a couple of gold artifacts with the Garuda.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
remember. Yeah, like I saw them. They had this exhibit a couple of years
Oh
back in
yeah,
New York.
in New
Yeah,
York.
like
Yeah,
gold artifacts, and there were at least two. I remember one, like it was like these pair of like Garuda earrings, which
I
is
think I've
really
seen that one. Yeah.
yeah. And then there was another one. I don't remember what it was about, but I need to find out like where those
Uh,
earrings were found because I don't know. I don't remember if it was like in the zone, the Visayas, or Mindanao.
yeah. It's I've seen the Garuda earrings when I've seen it in pictures. I was actually jealous
Yeah,
when I saw the announcement that they're going to do the exhibit in New York. I'm like, are they going to bring it to LA or San Francisco
I wish
by any
I
chance?
wish they did something like that, like besides New York, you know,
Yeah.
like they brought it to somewhere in California or elsewhere.
Yeah. There's a question from YouTube. Ate, you mentioned different layers. You mentioned like under the sea and in the sky. I am unfamiliar
Mm,
and would love to hear more from Lizzie.
yeah. So there's this belief in like seven layers of like the
Mm,
universe. So there's like the highest layer, which is where um like the supreme deity is, and then below that is like where the sky is, I believe.
mhm. Yeah.
And that they have like different creatures in there, and that's the layer where some versions of that myth of Bokunawa, like
Mhm,
Bokunawa lives
mhm.
on that layer. Um, what else? I'm trying to list the names. Then like the next layer is like where we live,
Mhm,
and then after that, it's like um, they call like the bowels of the earth. So you find
mhm,
like
mhm,
creatures and spirits that are associated with the earth.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and then below that, what's below that? There's another layer, but like if you look at it, like I don't know all the names of the layers. I just
There's a
know
lot.
the layers on the beliefs. If you look up, like this is like mostly like a Western Visayan belief.
Mm, mm, mhm.
Yeah, and then like
Cool.
the lowest layer is just like absolute nothingness.
Nothing.
Like, there's really nothing there.
Wow, there's 7 layers and there's a
Yeah,
lot to
probably.
dig. What's another question that we can um where is that? I thought I saw one that I wanted to highlight. I forgot where it went. Are there other kinds of creatures modeled after actual animals that are considered divine or powerful in mythology in the Philippines?
Mm, so there's like birds,
Mm-hmm.
like the birds, the crocodile, the snakes. Like those are the three
Yeah.
animals.
Mm.
Trying to think what
Usually,
else.
yeah, those three. Yeah.
Yeah, those three.
Uh,
I'm trying to think
I
what
think.
besides like in terms of like divine, like in the myths.
Mm.
Like I know there's other animals that are
Yeah.
associated, like in terms of omens. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the centipede is one. Um, certain type of insects like the butterfly or whatever. But like
Mm-hmm.
in terms of divine, I can't think of any other animals.
Or actually
Yeah,
animals. I thought that was the
yeah.
question.
Besides like like another one would be like turtles, like the turtles, the
Mm-mm.
crab, and that's
Yeah.
about yeah.
I can share in terms of divine in Kapampangan. One thing that I can think of is Dapu, which is the Dapu means crocodile,
Mm.
but it in Kapampangan mythology, Earth or the islands where we live in the Philippines, or the islands we now call the Philippines, were actually the back of the crocodile
Mm.
resting underwater. You know when the crocodiles are underwater, you see the spikes. So for our
Yeah.
mythology, they saw that as the Earth is actually a giant crocodile that they called motherland, basically
Mm-hmm.
Indong Tibuan. And yeah, so the back of the crocodile were the mountains, and yeah, so Dapu is considered a divine um, Mother Earth with the spikes, and it's usually depicted as a giant crocodile with some dragon features, but it's a crocodile dragon.
Yeah.
So
It
crocodile,
always goes back to like a crocodile or a snake or a
yeah.
bird. Like it's just constant.
Mhm. What else are there? Yeah, you mentioned bird. The Garuda is
Hmm.
in Kapampangan they saw it as the Philippine eagle. They
Yeah.
actually yeah. Then what else? There's so birds, serpents, crocodiles are a
Mhm.
huge thing actually in different in different
Yeah.
mythologies in the Philippines. Yeah. So if folks know in the comments, let us know
Oh
to share some more. Go ahead.
no, it has nothing to do with the eclipse, but
Uh-huh.
I think it's like among the Tasok, there's this belief of like the Milky Way, right?
Mm.
They believe that the Milky Way, they call the Milky Way Naga because
Oh,
they believe it's an actual Naga,
yeah.
right? That's been imprisoned by some deity. I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
the
I've
name.
heard about
Yeah. So that's another Naga, which I found very very fascinating.
Yeah. We can talk about Naga now if you want to talk about Naga some more for those who do not know what Naga is.
Yeah. So Nagas are basically these like divine creatures or
Mm.
deities that are snake-like or dragon-like.
Yeah.
They most often are associated with water for some of them.
Mhm.
The Naga do come from like Hinduism,
Mm.
Buddhism, um, and you also see like similarities in like other parts of like
Mm.
Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah. Um, and like in terms of like the Philippines, in terms of like snakes, like I'm talking, there's like a lot of them.
Mhm.
So one of the deities, actually one of the Visayan deities.
Mhm.
Some of you may know like the three war deities. So there's like was it Makunduk? Makunduk, was it Barangay, which is like the
Mhm.
rainbow, and then
Mhm.
Naginid or Inaginid, which is what
Mhm.
most people
Yeah.
know. But like if you, it's actually not Inaginid. It's not spelled with a Y or an
Yeah.
I, because when you look in the actual Spanish text, the Y is and, like like in Spanish, like Y
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And yeah.
or something like that. So
Yeah.
that's what it is. But the English transliteration of that included the Y as like part of the name of that deity.
Mhm.
So when you take out the Y, it's Nagini,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the name of the actual deity, Nagini is the female term for Naga.
For Naga. Yeah.
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 So like it's my like there's no real like hard proof on this. Like there's no,
Mhm.
like details on it, but like based on how they viewed that deity, like that deity's they believe is associated with war,
With war. Yeah.
right? And then also with poison,
Yeah.
snakes and poison. And then in terms of war, snakes in the Visayas, they did bring snakes
Mm-mm.
on the ships, like in the Caracoa,
Yeah.
as good luck. And again, you see snakes, you see crocodiles in the sword.
Mm. Yes.
So it's like even though there's no like concrete evidence, this deity had something to do with snakes, based on the name, based on what we
Uh,
do know, they believed in this deity, like being the war deity, being
yeah.
associated with poisons and charms and things like that.
Mm.
Like you can kind of see where it's leading. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like
It's
some type of, I feel like it is influenced like by the beliefs in like
mhm.
Hindu Buddhist
Yeah.
beliefs of the
There's
Naga.
a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of influence from Hinduism and Buddhism in Philippine mythology. Um, it just tells us how well we're connected with the rest of Asia back before
Mm,
colonialism.
yeah.
Let me just try to gather my thought about the Naga. A lot of people are actually, when you go to the different parts of Southeast Asia, you see different architecture, both different sculptures are nagas or naginis.
Mm.
The serpent, the dragon serpent ones, and even in Indonesia, again, you find in the swords, in the different um, architecture, even and um,
Mm.
so for one in Kapampangan, the Naga Rajas, the Dragon Kings, were seen as the siblings of Garuda, actually, of Galura, as the because Galura is the bird that brings typhoons from Pacific Ocean, and then
Mm.
the Nagas are his. We don't know how many they are. They just say that there's different siblings. They're all Nagas, of siblings of Galura. The younger siblings are all serpent-like dragon in the open
Mm.
seas and rivers. So they're just on the other side of the sea. Yeah, so
Mm.
those are the ones I can think of right now in terms of Nagas.
Mhm. Yeah. There's actually something, like, similar.
Mm,
I never found, like, this any, like, historical source for this or any papers
mm,
on it.
mm,
I just know, like, it is a belief, like, I think it's among the Tagalog,
mm,
there's there is this type of bird. I forgot the names, but then it always fights with this type of, like,
mm,
snake-like
mm,
being. I had to remember I had to look up the names, but there is, like, another one. It's, like,
mm,
something Kalalua?
mm.
Galing something like that. I don't remember.
Okay.
If anyone knows what I'm talking
Yeah.
about,
Comment.
comment. But there's another belief of, like, with, Batala and this bird-like being fighting with a
Mhm.
snake. And then
Yeah.
also, again, like, it comes from Hindu Buddhist
Mhm,
beliefs,
mhm.
like,
Yeah.
either through, like, um, you know, from, like, trade, they
Mhm,
get these,
mhm.
like, influences from, like, other parts of Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
You see this, like, common mythology of some type of bird, some type of
Mhm.
snake, like, fighting
Mhm,
with one
mhm, mhm.
another.
Yeah. There's a question from Patrick on YouTube. Is Bakunawa a symbol of community? Because everyone has to work together to scare it away.
Mm. It could
So
be,
yeah, that's a
like,
good way of seeing it. Yeah.
yeah, like, I would see it, in terms, especially, like, back in the day when our ancestors didn't, like, really know why, the eclipse happened. Like, they would all
Mhm.
come together, they would,
Yeah.
bang pots, play
Mhm.
gongs, shoot arrows into the sky, like, just to try to scare
Yeah.
Bukunawa or any of the other mythological
Yeah. So
creatures.
it's not actually just Bakunawa that they
Yeah.
plant their pots to.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see. Danica from Facebook is asking, aside from Bakunawa, is there any other dragon-like divine creatures from parts of the archipelago?
Hmm. Yeah, so, like, again, like the Milky Way, um,
Mm-mm.
among the Tasog and the Sama,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, Tasog and the
Yeah,
Sama,
yeah, yeah.
they believe that's a Naga. Trying to think what else.
I
Dragons.
did a lot of it, or at least from what I know in Kapampangan traditions, there's a lot of like creatures that have dragon-like features. So
Mm.
you can see them as dragons, but not
Yeah.
full on dragon. They have like
Not
other
like
systems.
yeah, not like European or
Yes,
Chinese style dragons. Like,
yeah.
we say dragon
Mm-hmm.
because, they can move around. They don't just, like, it's not just like a snake
Mm-hmm.
crawling on the ground or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, it has. Um, I guess that's one thing I want to also remind people, because a lot of the Filipinos are more familiar with Western and East Asian mythology. So there's always this comment I see online, on especially on Facebook, how there's no dragons in the Philippines. But
Mm.
that, I guess, that's rooted in the fact that um, we're not aware how our mythological beings look like, and how we're more familiar with the winged dragon from Europe, or the
Yeah.
long dragon from China. But yeah,
Mhm.
cool. Thank you for sharing and asking. Someone is asking, I wonder if it's related to Ibong Andar. Now, I guess the bird that we were mentioning earlier.
Oh, oh. Oh, when I was talking about the bird and the
Mm,
snake,
yeah,
it
I think that's.
no, it was another myth.
Mm-mm.
Actually,
So
I could look it up actually right now. Hold on.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but
So while you look at that, I'm gonna see where people are watching from. um, oh, I guess it's mostly a question now.
you can answer the ask the questions.
So this was a question from Luis Calvan. Is Dapu the crocodile more of a dragon on water or land? Dapu again is the one I mentioned earlier is Mother Earth in Kapampangan. It's a crocodile with dragon features. So it's a good mix of usually more of a crocodile than a dragon.
Mhm.
And it's basically on it's land itself. So the crocodile saves the land and the water. So I guess it's both water and land crocodile.
I
So
actually have a question on that. That's
yeah, go ahead.
the deity that I know there's a holiday in like June. Like it's like a water holiday. For for Kapampangan, like they honor
Mhm.
the that
Yeah,
deity. Is that
yeah.
Bayong Tanum or something like that?
Bayong Dinom, yeah. Bayong
Yeah.
Dinom is new water. Let me just double check my notes if I'm saying this right. Um, because I don't think it's actually this one, but it's related to this one.
Mm. Oh, okay.
So I'm glad you actually mentioned it.
Mhm.
So Bayang Dinom is literally new water in Kapampangan. It used to be the Kapampangan pre-colonial New Year celebration.
Mhm.
It happens during the new water celebration because, you know, seasonal changes and that's when water the dry season ends, and then the rainy
Mhm.
season comes in. So when the rainy season starts, that's when they start celebrating the Kapampangan New Year, which is Bayong Danum or New Water.
Mhm.
This is not necessarily the Dapu, the crocodile one, but one of the other dragon-like creatures in Kapampangan mythology, which is Lakandanum. That's the name I was looking for. So
Mhm.
Lakandanum literally means the god of the water, and Lakandanum itself is actually a mudfish. So a mudfish dragon. So mudfish with some dragon features. So the other one is a crocodile, and Lakandunum is a mudfish. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
when they celebrate um, New Year's, when the mudfish or the when the water um, or the new water comes in with the rain and the
Mhm.
ending of the dry season or summer. Yeah, so that's and they still celebrate it in in Pampanga as a more of a Christianized festival. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. A lot of the festivals in the Philippines have pre-colonial roots.
Yeah. Like there's one like the Obando fertility, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's based on pre-colonial. Like the dance that they do, the fertility dance. That was mentioned. That term, I don't Casino Lawan. I'm not sure. I'm butchering that word, but the name for the fertility dance.
Mhm,
It's seen in the like with the oldest Tagalog dictionaries,
mhm.
and they mentioned that it's a fertility dance.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's way
yeah,
before
yeah.
colonialism.
I actually made like a post on that on my blog.
Mhm,
It's like there's three saints associated with the Abanto fertility
mhm,
rites,
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
and like if you look at it, there's one deity like many people say that was associated. That's
Mhm.
Linya, which is like a phallic deity.
Yeah.
Um, but the two other ones that may have also been associated is Jan Masalanta
Oh
and
yeah.
Pati.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
There's a
it's
lot.
like
There's a
yeah,
lot of
there's a lot of
the
festivals.
festivals that Christian festivals now, but it was I guess it's a way
Yeah.
for our ancestors to keep their traditions alive, even with the new religion
Mm,
being imposed on them. There's a lot that I can think of too,
yeah.
from my roots in Pampanga of different even now we have the water parade in Pampanga, the fluvial parade, where they do the procession in boats
Mhm.
um, in Apalit in Pampanga, Apong Iru Festival. So now it's associated with a Christian saint, but it used to
Mhm.
be a pre-colonial festival too. Actually, if you look at the pictures, if you Google the Apongero Festival in Pampanga and you look at
Mhm.
Magindanawan, similar fluvial festivals in
Mm.
the water, the boats look the same. The flags are the colors of the flag are exactly the same, so it shows how there's a lot of similarities, even though now Maguindanao is Muslim and then Kapampangans are
Yeah.
Christian. So, but then that connection is still there. Yay! Let's look at other questions from the. Oh no, it's not loading. Um.
Well, while
Oh,
that's loading, oh, sorry.
okay.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
found the names of the one I was talking about,
Yeah.
the Tagalog like steak bird thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so for the Tagalog, the winged bird like deity is Galang Kaluluwa, which is like
Mm-mm.
wandering spirit. And the snake, um, it's this huge serpent that lives in the clouds. It's
Uh,
Huli lang Kaluluwa. Yes, I
mm.
pronounce it. Yeah. But there's like another Tagalog myth
Mhm.
involving those two. Like they're fighting it out.
Yeah. Usually
Yeah.
they're just fighting. Yeah. There's a question from Joshua, where I guess he had a typo there. Where
Mm.
were there any creatures depicted to take on human forms? Because we've been talking about dragons, serpents, birds. So were there creatures like I guess in this context that take on human forms that we know?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. There's only not for a naga. Well, I don't even think it was in a human form. I know there's a Tagalog deity,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Melupa, that was described as like a crow,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think they. Not that I know,
Yeah,
any creatures that took on
yeah,
human form that I could think of at the top of my head right now.
yeah. There's a lot because there's a lot of different mythologies too in
Yeah.
the Philippines. I'll share a little bit from Kapampangan. Usually, our deities, our dewatas, are take on a like Hinduism. They take on a non-human form, like an animal or a
Mm.
different creature, like Garuda, an eagle. Actually, Sinukuan, the sun god, is traditionally depicted as a fiery bird, so like a phoenix, so like a bigger bird than an eagle with the wings made of fire.
Mhm.
And then again, the other one, the Mother Earth, is a crocodile. But from what I know too, that sometimes they appear as humans to humans when they communicate, but usually they're animals or like creatures, mythical creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that also explains why in Kapampangan culture sometimes they see Sinokwan as an old man or a woman actually. So
Mhm.
like from what the elders told me is that it usually as a reflection of how you see it. There's no like one gender for them. There's like it's just like
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
they'll they'll, you'll see them the way you want to see them, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, speaking of gender, like, I actually
Mhm.
had this conversation, 'cause, like, I think you mentioned it earlier, like,
Mhm.
I am a polytheist, like, I'm a
Yeah,
Filipino,
yeah, yeah,
so there is actually a movement of people who are
yeah.
reviving the ancestral beliefs. So I actually had this conversation with someone in regards to, like, the gender of the deities. A lot of
Mm-mm.
the deities, it's they either have no gender
Yeah,
or based on the myth that's told, like, there's various myths of the
yeah,
deity, they're either female or male,
yeah,
right? So, like, you can't really look at our deities saying, like, "That's a goddess, that's a
yeah, yeah,
god." Like, a lot of them, there's really, the idea, like, the gender in terms of the deity,
yeah,
based on how our ancestors saw them, it wasn't really, like, concrete.
yeah. So
Like, it was
it was
just yeah.
it was very fluid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of tells us too how they saw gender in
Yeah.
society. How it's not really
Yeah.
just two gender. There's a lot of
Yeah.
radiance in between and fluidity that they saw.
They saw
Yeah.
that even in, like, in terms of, like, there's certain, like, classes of the babaylan. For
Mm-hmm.
example, there's, like, the asog, there's the,
Mm-hmm.
bayugin.
Yeah.
Those were, like, the babaylans, like, a certain class of babaylan that,
Yeah.
like, they were either, cross-dressers or,
Mm-hmm.
what we would say today, being transgender. But again, we don't know how they actually view that,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. prior to the spiders, we could just
Yeah.
guess on how they did. But in terms of like spirituality, like they didn't just see female, male, and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yay. There's a question from Gwyneth. What are the water, seas, or ocean diwata that you can think of right now, or you know of?
Oh. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There is a lot of them. So from the Visayas, the most
Mhm.
famous one is Magwayan.
Yeah.
Magwayan was known as like the primordial sea deity, and
Mm.
Magwayan is mentioned in the Visayan creation story, like
Yeah.
over and over again. There's like different historical accounts that talks about the Visayan creation story. So like the Baksa Codex is one.
Yeah.
Um, and speaking of the Baksa Codex, if you do want to read that, the English translation, it is available,
Yeah.
um, like very cheap now, actually, as a
Yeah. I
recent.
remember when it was $200. Now it's like what?
Yeah, it was like 300, like
Yeah.
$200 in both editions, and now you can get it for like $20 on Amazon,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is good. But yeah, so it mentions Magwayan being one of the deities associated with like creation of the islands. The other deity was Kaptan,
Hmm.
who is the sky deity.
Yeah.
Um, though in the Baksa Codex, it doesn't mention Kaptan, it mentions Laon, who
Hmm.
was like the other, like the Kaptan and Laon, who was like seen as like the two supreme like deities in the
Hmm.
Visayas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so there's Magwayan, um, and another deity. Let's see, I'm trying to think. For the Tagalog, there's a Mansanaya.
The Masinaya, yeah.
Yeah, Mansanaya. Mansanaya is like the inventor of the fishing net
Mm-mm.
for the Tagalog. Um, what else? There is another Tagalog deity that I know of. Most people know the deity like spelled as Hayek, so it's like Haik.
Mm-mm.
Because
Oh
again,
yeah.
that's the English transliteration.
Yeah.
But in the original Spanish text, it's not how it's spelled. In the Spanish text, it's spelled as with an S. So
Mm-mm.
it's
Mhm.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Siyak.
Mm-hmm.
And in Arabic, that means like a mentor or
Mm-hmm.
teacher, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when you look, there's another list of Tagalog deities, like a whole list by
Mhm.
what's his name, Felipe Pardo.
Oh
It,
yeah. Yeah.
it's this list of Tagalog deities was found in the Laguna area,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the Archbishop of Manila at the time, I forgot the year,
Mm-hmm.
he wrote down like information on the beliefs and the deities in the Laguna area,
Mm-hmm.
near like Santa Tomas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like one deity that's also another mentioned for the sea deity. I forget the name of that, but it seems like the title like Siak is actually the title, not the name of
Mm-hmm. The
the
deity, yeah.
one. Yeah, because there's another deity that's mentioned in that list, Siak Matandá, which
Mm-hmm.
I think that one was associated with like commerce and trade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so those are a couple. The Ilocano, there
Mm-hmm.
is there's a river deity among the Ilocano,
Mm-hmm.
Litaw,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, some see it as like a mermaid,
Mm-hmm.
but there's another Ilocano folklore of Litaw being like this small man who lives in like the banks of the rivers.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the mermaid, there is a story involving like this girl. She was, I think she was weaving with her mother, right,
Mm-hmm.
near the river,
Yeah.
and she happened to drop like her needle into the river.
Mm-hmm.
So her mother warned her not to go there because she would be drifted off into the river. Ita would take her, etc. She went into the river to get the needle because it looked like it wasn't like a strong current. It was very
Mm-hmm.
clear. So she got the needle, but obviously she went through the current, and she
Mm-hmm.
became a sirena. Bitao changed her into a sirena or a mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
And in the folklore, they eventually married. So for the Ilocano, there's this belief in that Serena,
Mm-hmm.
who's like gifted with like magical powers and things like that. But yeah, that's another deity for the in terms of like water.
Mhm.
Trying to think what else. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think
There's a
there's
lot.
one. Um, already mentioned Amansinaya.
Mhm.
Who else is there? That is because I always talk about Kapampangan. So I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
non-Kapampangan ones. um, but yeah, I mentioned earlier the Kapampangan one. Lakandúlâ, literally god of water.
Hmm.
Is a water deity, and there's also again the Nagas were seen as the rulers of the sea. They're seen as sometimes they're seen as Diwata too, um,
Yeah.
but a minor one compared to the other ones, the younger siblings of Garuda or Galura.
Hmm.
Um, I know from the Mount Pinatubo one, Apong Malyari or Mayari, a lot of people known as Mayari, the moon god in Kapampangan, who's also a god in the Aita mythology. Even though he's the moon god, or he or she or they are the moon god,
Hmm.
they also rule the rivers of
The
what is
8
now the
rivers,
Zambales.
right?
Yeah, the eight
I think
rivers
the 8 rivers. Yeah.
in Zambales, in Pampanga Zambales border. Yeah, so that's another not necessarily water specific, but moon deity that also rules the waters.
Yeah.
But those are the only ones I can think of right now. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's just like listing in the top of your head. It's like
Yeah,
on the spot. But yeah, those are the prime ones that I could think of at the top of my head.
yeah. What else is there? Oh, here's a question from Lou Raymond. Is it true that there is a moon deity who is gay and partnered with the deity of death? I've seen a lot of the artworks.
Yeah, I think you already know my answer to this one, right?
Yeah, but go ahead.
No, no. This actually goes back during our Tumblr days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there was a post. Um, it was like a blog,
Mm.
and like I think Blogspot or something.
Yeah.
And I did actually mention this in the Pinoy culture blog on Tumblr.
Hmm.
Um, this was like around the same time as the shows like Amaya
Oh
and
yeah.
like from GMA, and
Yeah.
the other show was what was it, Indio,
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
right? So this, someone made this like blog post in terms of that story, and
Yeah.
there was nothing like prior to that
Yeah.
that even existed, like on the internet. Like even if you looked it up, you could not find anything on that.
Mm.
But because of artwork, um, from the artwork being spread, it kind of was believed that it was.
Yeah.
But no, there's no um, historical basis on that.
So it's more of a modern
Yeah,
mythology.
modern one. Yeah, but like I do have a comment on that though.
Yeah.
So even though like we know there's no like historical
Yeah.
basis
Yeah.
on that. It's more like a modern story.
Uh-huh.
Like again, I've also talked about this like among those who like are actually like reviving these beliefs.
Yeah.
Um, there's like this terminology among us where it's like pan pan Philippine pantheon. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I say pan Philippine pantheon, there is technically no pan Philippine pantheon
Yeah. Yeah.
like in the Philippines like historically because there's
Yeah.
like nations
Yeah.
within a nation.
Yeah.
Um, so we're all not one, but like this is terminology that we use pan Philippine pantheon, right?
Uh-huh.
That kind of uses like for example Sitapa and Libulan, if they feel like connected to that,
Mm.
it to us like it's totally fine, but like
Yeah.
there's because a lot of people resonate with that story,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know but there's like a distinction saying
Mm.
like it's a modern story, not historical.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you connect with that story, it's like that's
That's
fine.
yeah. That's true. Yeah. So it's not necessarily I mean the thing with mythology too is that it evolves through time.
Yes,
So
it
the stories
evolves.
evolve. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
like
Thanks for
like it's completely fine. Like I
yeah.
actually love that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like it's just trying to distinction what was pre-colonial,
Yeah.
historical wise, and
That's
what's
true.
more
Yeah.
modern.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for asking the question and for answering the question. Um, let's see what else is there that we haven't. Um, where is it? Wait, I thought I lost. I saw something that I couldn't find anymore. Oh, here. This one is asking, is Bakunawa a Nagaraja?
Yes. We see as as a Naga.
Yeah.
Like we do describe Bokunawa as a Naga.
Mm-hmm,
So yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Just a more specific one.
Yeah.
For those who don't know Nagarajas or Nagas are, it's a wide variety of different serpent like mythological beings. So there's just not one more than there's more than one variation of a Naga, and one of them, the most famous one in the Philippines, is Bakunawa.
Bokunawa.
Yeah. What else is there? Uh, Trying to scroll back up to if we missed anything from earlier. But yeah, feel free to talk about anything you want to talk about. Actually,
Yeah.
we're over an hour now, so let me know
Oh
how you are in time.
no, we're good. Yeah.
Okay. What else is there? Uh, oh, someone's asking. I wonder if there are any Filipino comics based off Filipino dragons yet. Like specifically about dragons?
Hmm. Not that I know of.
Yeah, not that I'm
Like,
aware of. Hopefully there is.
hopefully, someone will make something like
Yeah.
that.
If there is, let us know in the comment. Someone's made a comment about Serena or mermaids.
Mhm.
Is it connected or maybe influenced by European folklore, or is it a totally
Mhm.
different iteration?
So the word Serena,
Hmm.
it does come from
Yeah,
the
that,
Spaniards, but
yeah.
um, prior to the Spaniards, there were beliefs in like these humanoid, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like it's like the Serena, like mermaids. They did have pre-colonial beliefs on that. So while the word itself
Mm-hmm.
is loaned to to many of the ethnic groups in the language, the beliefs are
Mm-hmm.
local. Like they weren't some, there may be some influences from the
Mm-hmm.
concepts of like the actual Serena from the Spaniards,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it's native beliefs.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, a lot of the some of the words we see in historical records were in Spanish because the Spaniards
Mm,
recorded
yeah,
it, but they're not necessarily from Spain. Yeah, I don't know what
yeah.
else
Like
is.
there's a couple like
Mm-hmm.
they're associated with the term Serena. So
Mm-hmm.
there's like the Visayan Kitao,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
what's the other one? Siyukoy.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, those
Uh,
are like native.
I guess I have a question about the Shokoi. How do Visayans? I guess do they have Shokoi in the Visayas mythology? If you're familiar with,
Hmm.
because I know a little bit about the Kapampangan, but not much about outside that.
Hmm. I think it's pretty much the same. I know in the Visayas it was more of the Katao,
Mm-hmm.
but like both were there, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the mentions from I know is more on the Katao
Mm-hmm.
in folklore.
Okay. So I'll just share the Kapampangan one. The Shokoi is actually a Swiki in Kapampangan, and they saw
Mm.
it as water demons, but not in a bad way. They saw them as water demons who are able to ward off diseases. So whenever someone is sick, they would actually seek the help of a Swiki
Mm.
through rituals and prayers. So not necessarily bad, because now people see Shokoi, especially in Filipino movies, as this like disgusting looking um,
Yeah.
fish-like human that attacks people. But at least in Kapampangan, from what I know, our ancestors saw them as someone who helps them cure diseases.
Mm.
So maybe we need
Yeah.
small boys back to end the pandemic.
Like in the Visayas, both of them are they're associated like with the sea spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So the tupignon. So
Mm. Mm.
like even now, like a lot of fishermen, like for example in
Yeah.
Leyte and Samar,
Mm-hmm.
um, they before they go out fishing, right? Like they do these like offerings to the sea spirits still, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um.
like those two like they are associated with like the sea spirits.
Yeah. There's a question from Shade Gray on YouTube for Ate Ligaya. As someone who seeks to revive pre-colonial religious beliefs, how will these beliefs benefit modern Filipinos, and why is it important?
Hmm.
Before you answer, I'm gonna step out for a little bit, but you can answer. Feel free to answer. I just need to use the restroom.
You're leaving me here all alone.
No, I'm still considering. I just need to run to the restroom right now.
Okay.
Taking
But
a
yeah,
while.
so in terms of like how it would benefit modern Filipinos, so in terms of like cultural pride, and in terms of like spirituality. So like a lot of people that I've talked with, they're not necessarily Filipino reconstructionists, but they want to connect with the ancestors in some way. And like one of the major beliefs besides working, believing in the deities, is ancestors. So our ancestors did offerings to, you know the anito, that's what the word is, the common word for it. So you know we're not saying like get rid of Christianity or whatever, because there, in terms of Christianity in the Philippines, um there is folk Christianity. So while they do give offerings, they do practice certain rituals or whatever that is that one would say was animistic, um, based on beliefs and practices from the Philippines. So like one of the most famous ones is, everybody knows, tabi tabi po. That is something that has been around prior to the Spaniards. The Spaniards even mentioned it in the historical texts, and it's belief in the spirits. Many Filipinos still believe in the spirits. Um, but in terms of like reviving the pre-colonial ancestral beliefs, based on like how I'm seeing it now, like there is a movement on it, and it's more like connecting with the ancestors and feeling this sense of like identity, basically. and And I'll actually read the comments. I could see some comments on my end, but it's not gonna show on the screen until Kirby
Actually,
comes back.
highlighted me. Just let me know
Oh,
which
there
one
you
you want.
go.
I'm back.
Yeah, I was like wondering. I was like, I could read some of the comments until you came back.
Okay, let me know which one you want to highlight and answer.
I actually didn't. I just finished the last one, so I didn't get to a chance to go up on the screen.
Okay. Um.
But if you see anything.
Yeah. Here's a question about aswangs.
Hmm.
Are the aswangs and other mythological monsters actually bad, or just bad if you start something first, or if you do something bad first? I guess.
Well, in the Visayas,
Mm.
the aswang, it's everywhere. It's generally, seen as something bad, like regardless of like what you do.
Mm-mm.
Um, in terms of other mythological creatures, I mean, it
Mm.
depends on what the creature. Like for example, like there are beliefs on like the spirits. Like
Mm.
I mentioned earlier, like tabi tabi po,
Mm.
right? Like you say that greeting to warn the spirits that you're not
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
harm them or whatever. Um, and generally they won't harm you
Mm-mm. Mm.
unless you disrespect them in some way, etc. And like
Mm.
it's not just like these beliefs are still in the Philippines,
Mm-mm.
like throughout the Philippines in some form. So it's not
Mm-mm.
like they never really died out. Like
Yeah.
what really died out was working, believing in the deities. So
Mm-mm.
like the animistic beliefs, like in the
Yeah.
spirits and the ancestors, that never died out. Pretty
True. That is true. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Just to answer the question on the aswang, um, some of the famous aswangs in mainstream Filipino pop culture now are the manananggal in Tagalog,
Mm,
tikpalang.
yeah.
Something I can share about that from a Kapampangan perspective, from the culture in Pampanga. Um, manananggal in Kapampangan is mangkukutud, but in Kapampangan it's just the
Mm,
head that detaches.
mhm,
So it's the same as the ones in Bali or Thailand, where just the head
mhm.
that detaches, or Indonesia and Malaysia.
Uh-huh.
Um, and from one of the stories of the elders or folk tales or of oral traditions that were passed down to us about Mangkukutud was that Mangkukutud was seen as they used to be Mangkukutud used to be the diwata, not necessarily diwata, but a deity of the coconut tree.
Yeah. That was, I was gonna mention that. Like
Yeah.
that was also written in like the historical text also
Mhm. Yeah.
for being associated like one of the deities for the coconut tree. And then like
Yeah.
for that, based on the text, like the tuba tappers
Mm-hmm.
would, I guess give an offering to
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
deity so
Yeah.
they could get the, stuff
The,
that they need
the
for the
juice. Yeah.
tuba.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they used to see her as this mother deity from the coconut that sacrificed her many heads to feed
Mm.
the third or to feed the hungry and quench the thirst of the thirsty because coconut is very delicious. There's a meat in there, there's a juice in there, and you can use
Yeah.
the wood to build houses. So it was seen as benevolent. Another one, the tikbalang from what I know in Kapampangan, it might be different from other
Mhm.
cultures in the Philippines. But in Kapampangan, tikbalangs were not necessarily horse human. They're
Yeah.
actually more of a bird head and a human body, and they were the guardians
Mhm.
of some sacred caves and treasures. So they're not
Yeah.
necessarily evil, but just they're guarding something.
Mhm.
And what's
Yeah.
another one that I can think of as popular as Wang? Um, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is more of a modern one. In Filipino, there's the pugot na ulo, the beheaded
Hmm.
ghost. But that, if for my research, because I was doing research on African Americans who helped Filipinos during the Philippine American War.
Mhm.
If you look at the word pugot before the Philippine American War, it refers to a mythological being that's similar to a capre in Kapampangan and
Mm.
Ilocano culture, pugot, and it's this giant being in deep in the forest that guards Mother
Mhm.
Nature. So
Mhm.
the pugot would not harm you unless you actually harm Mother Nature.
Mm.
So um, so the story how it's related to being beheaded, the one I saw that connects it is the story of David Fagan, actually, the
Mm.
famous African American
Yeah.
soldier who defected and joined the Filipinos against the Americans during the Philippine American War. So he was because in Pampanga, David Fagan is actually known as Pugot. That was the name that the
Oh,
community named
I
him.
didn't know about that one.
Yeah. So when I found out that was his nickname from the community, like, oh, that makes sense, because
Mhm.
they saw him as the a human embodiment of this ancient pre-colonial mythological being that guarded the
Mhm.
forest and actually not just the forest, also Mother Nature and indigenous peoples.
Mm.
So David Fagan was when he was in Pampanga when he switched sides, so he joined. He was welcomed by the Aitas, the indigenous Aitas, as one of them, and
Mhm.
he was welcomed by Kapampangans too. And that was the Kapampangan and Aita people who gave him the nickname Pugut because they saw him as this, I guess, a modern day embodiment of this pre-colonial being who protected the forest and the indigenous people. So they saw him as
Mm.
that, continuing that mythology.
Yeah.
And then in the official American records, he was beheaded.
Yeah, that's what I read, like, they beheaded him.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
they beheaded him, but then they actually never verified
They
it was.
never they never verified it, like, I
Yeah,
don't think it was
yeah,
any body or no, from what I read, like, there
yeah,
was a body, but they couldn't verify if it was actually him.
yeah.
So, like, there
There
were
was no.
stories that it wasn't him, that he
Yeah,
actually just lived out his life in the
yeah,
Philippines.
yeah. That's from what I found out too. There were actually a lot of sightings of him in
Yeah.
Pampanga and Manila, even years after he was supposedly beheaded.
Mhm.
So I guess the way I connected is like he's like a ghost that a beheaded ghost that or I guess from a mythological being to an actual war hero, and then
Yeah.
that's how I see the Pugot story comes from. Because before him, I couldn't find any reference to. I mean, there's some beheaded ghost references in different
Mhm.
folklore, but not necessarily the word Pugot, if that
Mm.
makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of folklore about David Fagan in Pampanga. If you talk to the elders, how they
Wow,
saw
that's
him as this
interesting.
spiritual, very spiritual
Yeah, I
and
didn't know the spiritual aspect with him in Pampanga, but that's
yeah,
very interesting.
yeah. When I found out, like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
that
the
does make
connection. Yeah.
sense.
Let's see what else are there. Um, oh, someone says, "Wow, we have in Kalinga, I think called atang."
Mhm.
celebration we have. The
Yeah,
offering
Atang.
to
Yeah,
the spirits. Yeah.
yeah. Like it, the Atang. From Atang, I know it was also Ilocano. Like that's how I know that word. It's
Yeah.
for the Ilocanos as well.
Mhm. In Kapampangan, it's called daon.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
sounds like down, but down.
There's
Yeah.
like different terminologies. Like
Mhm.
I know for in the in the Visayas and Mindanao, the
Mhm.
term it's interchangeable. So there's like uh paganito and
Mm-mm.
maganito.
Yeah.
Like that's what the term is.
Yeah.
Um and then in the Tagalog, it's pandot.
Mm.
That's the term
Yeah, I've
for
heard
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question from Patrick. None of my friends care about pre-colonial Filipino mythology. Those are my guinea pigs. How do I get people interested?
um That's a good question. How do you get them interested? Well, like I know a lot of people first get interested in our mythologies through artwork and like games, and
Mm-mm.
you're
Yeah.
seeing a
Yeah.
lot more of that. So like games, books,
Yeah.
and artwork and things like that. So from my thing, like try to find what they're interested in.
Yeah.
So there is a game. I don't remember the game. There's like a new one that was talked about.
Mm.
Like it's like an I'm not sure if it was like an RPG game because I'm
Like
not really much of a gamer, but like, I've seen it online.
yeah.
Um, it's based on like mythology and like pre-colonial Philippines. If
Mhm.
anyone knows what I'm talking about, feel free to
Let
comment.
us know. Yeah.
But like I've seen it on Instagram and on Facebook, like people talking about it.
Yeah.
Um, so if it's available to play now, you can get them to play if if they play games.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like,
Yeah.
find what they're
Yeah,
interested in.
find what they're interested in, and I
Yeah.
guess that's for me. It's also about making it more visible because a
Yeah,
lot of them are
making more
unfamiliar with
awareness.
it. So the
Like,
more
yeah, like, for
they see
example,
it, the more they're gonna get.
exposed to it.
Uh,
Yeah. Like, for example, like, back then, I think it was a Maya that kind of sparked, like, this interest, at least, like, in pre-colonial Philippines and mythology, back then. And then, fast forward a couple of years later, it's just a lot more people, like, because like, a lot of people do comment and message me, like, saying, like, they've just been interested in, like, digging into their roots, their ancestral roots or whatever. Um, and it's just this kind of, like, collective, like, thought process. Like, everyone's just, like, going into it. And then also, like, in terms of, like, I don't wanna say trends, but, like, there's a lot more people going into, like, witchcraft and, like, spirituality, like, witch talk and things like that. So I know there's a couple people who find, like, Filipino mythology from that.
mm,
But like, there's different, like, outlets,
yeah,
like, some people find mythology from, like, stories,
yeah,
like Trece, yeah, was it Trece? Yeah, Trece.
yeah. Yeah, the recent
Um,
one. Yeah,
that was another recent one that got a lot of people more interested in, Filipino folklore, mythology, things like that.
yeah,
So, like, if more people make artwork,
mm,
games, books, comics,
yeah,
it helps spread that information.
yeah, yeah. The more people know, then the more exposed they
Yeah,
are, the more interested they're
more
gonna get.
exposed. And it gets to the point where it's just like, um, it's more mainstream,
Yeah,
basically. Like, it's more talked about to the point where it's not like as it's harder to find information
mm,
because a lot more people know about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for answering the question. That's actually a good answer. It's hard to answer, but
Yeah,
you gave it
because I don't know, in the individual person, but, like, in terms of, like, what I've seen, like, throughout the years,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
a lot of people find information on our mythology,
Mhm.
and just pre-colonial Philippines in general through
Yeah,
artwork,
yeah.
through books and things like that.
There's a power in pop culture.
Yeah.
What else is there that we can answer? Uh, Here. The animistic traditions ended up getting absorbed into Christianity practice in the Philippines then. Are there- It's a question. There's a
Oh,
question.
no, yeah, because I was talking about like folk Christianity. So yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of like
Mhm.
traditional practices and beliefs that got absorbed into
Yeah,
Christian. I mean, we were even talking about it before, like in terms of like celebrations.
yeah.
It was just Christianized, but the traditions are still there.
Yeah, still there. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of traditions that we associate with Christianity today that actually has roots from before colonialism came to the
Mm,
Philippines. Yeah.
yeah, because like
Um.
even
Mhm,
with a lot of some babaylans and they they use Christianity, but a
mhm,
lot of the practices are pre-colonial.
mhm.
It's just like a blend of both.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I'm just checking how much the fundraiser is going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we started, we had this much on
Hmm.
the national fundraiser, and now I'm refreshing the page. Let me double check what we have now. Where is it? So as of 7:35 p.m. in Pacific, we there's now 7,406.09 cents. So that's around $300 from
Yeah.
when we started.
Good
Yay!
job,
So thank
guys.
you, thank you for donating.
Yes.
I forgot
Excellent.
to make some reminders that this is a fundraiser, but I
Yes.
guess they still
Yes.
donated.
We're
Thank
not
you.
just talking. This is a fundraiser.
Yeah.
Um, and there's actually something about this. Like I wanted to
Mhm.
just mention. Like, there's
Yeah.
not
Go
a
ahead.
lot of like media coverage on this.
Yes.
Typhoon Odette.
Yeah. On
Like,
this one. Yeah.
even though it's like it happened in majority of the Visayas,
Mhm.
parts of Mindanao,
Yeah.
Palawan, but like
It's
you don't really see any like a lot of media coverage compared to
mhm,
like, for
the
example,
previous one.
Typhoon Yolanda.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Sadly, yeah. We were talking last night if we had a situation report from our partners with NAFCON in the Philippines, and they told us that in a lot of these places there's no signal at all. There's no
yeah,
electricity, there's no signal, and it might even take more than 2 weeks to restore
yeah.
any
And then there's
signal.
like a lot of places they don't have any clean water.
Yeah, yeah.
I've read reports like they're drinking like coconut water, but the coconut
Mhm.
water, is spoiled at that
Yeah,
point. So
yeah.
like there's a lack of clean water. I know there's one organization that's working on like providing clean water.
Water. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of struggles that they're experiencing right now. So thank you for everybody who are donating. Um, yeah, so $300 that we raised in the last hour, and that's 300 something meals, hot meals in the Philippines. Yeah, so if you have the extra change,
Yeah.
please donate.
You're
Please
in
donate.
desperate need of help.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for everybody who donated. Let's go back to the comments. um, okay. I have been collecting Philippine mythical creatures like Bakunawa, Minokawa, Sarabanok, Ibangandana. Is there any other creatures too? Oh, I guess in
In
broad.
just general.
Yeah, we did discuss some of them earlier. So if you missed it,
Yeah.
this video,
A lot.
this live stream will also be posted as a video on Facebook and YouTube right after this, so you can rewatch it. For
Hmm.
the ones that we mentioned that you missed, there's the lion one in
Yeah,
Mindanao.
Maranao.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Manila, yeah.
There's one that's a crab, one that's a tarantula.
Yeah. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of different ones.
And then in terms of like mythological creatures,
Mhm.
like there's a lot. We would be here all day if we were to list like every
Yeah. Okay.
mythological creature.
Where do we start? Cool. Thanks for asking. Any other questions that we can answer? Um, some of it is just like they're answering each other's questions. So like we're
Yeah.
trying to find the ones that haven't been answered. Uh, oh, here. This one is from my partner actually. She's in the
Hmm.
other room, tuning in late. Ate Ligaya, how did you get started in learning about Filipino mythology, and what
Hmm.
sparked your interest?
Good question. So like I think you mentioned it in my little intro.
Mm-mm.
So like I have been pagan since I was like around 10 years old.
Mhm.
Um, first starting with like Wicca and then just like a general like pagan.
Mhm.
And right around like right before I started Pinoy culture, actually that is like part of the main reason why I started Pinoy
Mhm.
culture, like that interest in Filipino mythology.
Mhm.
Like I had this question like what were some of the, mythologies and gods and goddesses in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Like everyone knows like the Greek, Norse, and
Yeah.
etc. Like everyone knows the Greek. Um
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, what about the Philippines? So that's like kind of like how it started for me, and also kind of like how it started my own
Mhm.
decolonization process from that. And that interest in finding like what were some other mythologies that led
Mhm.
to this long road of like looking into like
Mhm.
pre-colonial
Yeah.
Philippines, and then just all this information that we're not really taught,
Mhm.
especially in the diaspora.
Yeah.
um you know we're not really taught a lot about the history, pre-colonial history and things like that. So that's how I got into that. And 10 years ago, that's I became a reconstructionist, like just reviving.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And back then, like there were a few. There were a few who were also doing the same thing as well.
Mhm.
Um, I don't remember. Like, there's one that a lot of people know, Lucayo. I don't
Mhm.
know if you remember them from Tumblr,
I
but they
think I
had
do.
like
Yeah.
a blog. It was called like Anito Anu. I
Mhm.
think that's what it's
Mhm.
called.
Yeah. I remember.
They're Bicolano. Um, yeah, they were one of the few. There was a few others, but like now,
Mhm.
like there's a whole community
Yeah.
of
It's
just
growing.
people just like coming to revive these beliefs, like in
Yeah.
the modern day.
Thanks for answering the question. I think there's another question, but this might be more for me.
Mm.
Is Apong Sinukuan and Mariang Sinukuan the same deity? I know that some deities like Maria Makiling, Maria Cacao had their name changed during colonial era. So to answer this, that Danica. Um, so again, Apong Sinukuan, for those who are not familiar, is the sun god in Kapampangan mythology, and he eventually became the supreme paramount diwata in Kapampangan. And no. So the quick answer to the question is that Apong Sinukuan and Maria Sinukuan are separate. I mean, even though Maria Sinukuan is a colonial name, the Mariang Sinukuan that or the deity that they named Mariang Sinukuan is actually in Kapampangan is actually the daughter of Apong Sinukuan. It's one of his daughters. There's the folklore around it is they call them the three. I actually hear a lot in pop culture in the Philippines. Tres Marias, three Marys.
Mm. Yeah,
So
the
in
Three
Kapampangan,
Marias.
yeah, they always hear that Tres Marias.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a group of three women. So in Kapampangan, there's this what they call the Dingatlong Maria ng Apong Sinukuan, the Tres Marias of Apong Sinukuan. That refers to his three daughters. So that's where the modern concept of Mariang Sinukuan comes from. So not necessarily Apong Sinukuan, but one of his three daughters.
Mm.
But yeah, so that hopefully that answered the question. But yes, a lot of the pre-colonial deities were renamed,
Yeah.
and their
I
stories were
see, yeah, I see
altered.
the question also like for Jan Masalanta, like
Yeah,
today is known as Mariang Makaling
yeah, yeah.
today.
And today, usually they're the folklore from the colonial era. Usually they're depicted as someone you should be scared of.
Mm.
Yeah, but not necessarily before colonialism. Cool. Oh, what is that? Oh, just an email notification. um, okay, so my partner says, "Thank you for sharing your experience, Ate Ligaya. Appreciate all that you do."
Thank you.
Oh, somebody found your blog. I found your blog in Tumblr, and it's inspired me to learn more about Philippine mythology. Thank you, po, Ate.
Oh, thank you, Naomi.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I mentioned earlier. The blog Pinoy Culture is one of the ones I really religiously follow every day and see what if there's any new
Yeah.
posts or new artwork. I told Ate Ligay this before, but when I started my channel, it was partly also inspired by there's this
Mhm.
blog that shares what she knows about our culture, and that's part of the reason why I did start my channel doing more educational stuff. Yeah, so thank you for that. You're part of
Oh,
my inspiration.
thank you. I feel so honored. Thank you.
Let's see. Other questions. Sorry. Why is the lion motif so popular in Southeast Asia when there aren't any lions here? Good question.
I've actually been wondering that too. Like, there's
Yeah.
no,
There are tigers, but not
yeah,
lions.
there's tigers, but there's no lions. Maybe it just like kind of shifted. Like,
Mm,
maybe it was originally a tiger or some
yeah.
sort, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm actually wondering why it's a lion as well.
Yeah. Good question. We can definitely do more research.
Yeah.
Oops, I clicked the same comment. um, okay, I think a lot of the questions have been answered. So if folks still have questions, we um, usually I do a 2 hour stream and we're
Mhm.
at 1 hour and 40 minutes. So maybe another 15, 20 minutes that we can go on. Oh yeah, this one. I was actually going to ask you this. Please share Ate Ligaya's
Oh,
socials. I'm going to type it on the.
yeah. So you can find me mostly on Instagram and then TikTok, but mostly Instagram. I'm like pretty active on there. It's under the Pinoy writer on both of them. And
Uh,
I do also have a blog under thepinywriter.com. Um, just post when I feel like posting, but there are some, like, there are some posts that I made. There's one post on the Tagalog deities,
mm, mm,
one post talking about Jan Masalanta and what I feel like the connection with Abando fertility rights.
yeah.
Um, and then there's also like for those of you who want to learn more about like researching pre-colonial Philippines or like
Yeah.
folklore, mythology, I do have like a list on my blog as well, like as resources. So a couple of them bring you like directly to the historical account. I think I do also like mention a couple of books
Mhm.
on there. So yeah, but mostly Instagram
Yeah.
and TikTok for me.
Or Tumblr, if you want to dig dig deep in the
Yeah,
Tumblr
if you want
archives.
to actually no, like speaking of Tumblr, I actually started posting there again.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
like
haven't logged in.
I don't really use it. I just like post whatever I post on
Mm,
Instagram because I had like a question someone on Tumblr like that's the only social media that they use. They don't
mm,
use Instagram or whatever. It's like, all right,
yeah.
fine, I'll like post every now and then on
Anything,
there.
yeah.
But I don't really use it as much as like Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah. It just suddenly died.
Yeah. Like I stopped using that I think like 2016,
Mhm.
2017. I
Yeah.
know I started the blog like 2012.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like and yeah, I stopped around 2016, 2017. But there's
Yeah.
like it's still alive. I was actually shocked. Like there's people still there.
Yeah. I haven't logged in since 2019, but yeah,
Mm.
around 2019, there's a lot of people who are active there.
No.
Um, Here's a comment from Key to My Heart. I appreciate everything. It's an eye opener to me. Mabuhay po. Yay, thank you. Um, a question from Joshua. Whenever you guys do less true to text endeavors and undertake creative pursuits like writing short stories, artwork, do you incorporate references from the states or uh, lean towards 100% Pinoy?
So you mean I'm actually kind of confused on the question actually.
Yeah, let
Like,
me. I think he's asking if whenever you're doing something creative
mm,
that not necessarily
mm.
um, um, true to the text of the source material, do you
Mm.
incorporate references from other countries?
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
or
So like again, like I mentioned, I'm a reconstructionist. So
mm,
reconstructionists
yeah,
themselves, like under the larger umbrella term of like paganism, like there's Greek reconstructionists who are reviving like the
mm,
Greek mythology.
yeah,
So we look at actual like primary sources, archaeology, anthropology, but then we also look at what's currently believed today, like in the Philippines at least,
mm,
because a lot of the beliefs are
I
still
feel yeah,
here. So we compare what is still being practiced and believed based on what was also written about, like
hmm,
pre-colonially. And then also for myself, there are some connections, like just to help like reconstruct
yeah,
some of these beliefs. There are some similarities, like in other parts of Southeast Asia, for
mm,
example. Um, so you look toward those, like the Austronesian like cultures and things like
mm,
that. 'Cause there are some other similarities.
yeah,
um, that you don't necessarily like take, but like you could kind of figure out where the native, pre-colonial beliefs and practices were.
Yeah,
Um, but in terms of like stories, artwork, are you okay?
I'm okay.
You could get a drink of water.
Yeah, keep going. I'll mute myself so I don't.
No, like okay. Um, yeah, but like in terms of like stories and like artwork, so I think Kirby mentioned it earlier. I am working on a story, um, inspired by like pre-colonial history and our folklore and mythologies. Um, in terms of like foreign influences, again, like in terms of being a reconstructionist, I look at the historical records, and the oldest dictionaries, because the information is there. You just have to piece together basically like all the little scraps and pieces of information and put them all together. And then you look at that combined with archaeology, anthropology, and like what's currently being practiced today. But it's like in terms of being like 100% Filipino, it's all like from the Philippines. There's no like foreign influences, if that's what you're trying to ask in the question.
Yeah, it's the same with doing research. At least from when I do my research, um, for me, I don't look at just because as a historian, we're trained to just look at historical records, what's
Mm,
written and what's
yeah,
recorded out there. But for me, I also look at oral traditions that were passed down because
yeah.
sometimes they actually match the
Well,
history, or
oral
they just
traditions, yeah.
provide a different perspective about the same story that is written in historical records. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a lot of like balancing act where you pull from
yeah.
different sources and yeah.
Especially for us, because like
Mhm.
our mythologies, our folklore were passed down through oral literature.
Mhm, yeah, yeah.
Like they told these myths and the stories, these stories of heroes or deities or mythologies, or whatever.
Mhm,
When they went out fishing or
yeah.
they were working on the fields, like that's how they told us, passed down the stories, and that is still how they pass down the stories today.
Mhm.
That's
Today,
how
yeah.
in the Philippines today, there's still these like folklore throughout the
Mhm,
Philippines,
yeah, yeah,
through oral history
yeah.
and
And
literature.
that's one thing I also want to encourage a lot of the viewers to, if you know of stories that were passed down in your family, to record it.
Yeah,
You
record
can
it.
either, if you don't want to write it down, just record the audio of your elder
Yeah.
sharing the story because a lot
Yeah,
of
I actually got a message the other day.
mm,
Actually, they're Kampampangan.
mm,
Um, she had like this audio from I think her great grandmother or
wow,
grandmother, like talking about folklore, and like she was
yeah,
trying to like transcribe it. I was like,
yeah,
that's amazing, because like we do have the historical text to look
yeah,
onto and like papers, like academic
yeah,
papers
yeah,
to look into, but like a lot of the knowledge is through our families,
yeah,
passed down
yeah,
orally. It's like what I want to see kind of is like a collective, like
yeah,
collecting all these stories.
yeah,
Because like for the most part, like when you look at academic papers or books,
mm,
a lot of the collections of these stories and folklore were not necessarily made from other Filipinos.
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
you know, especially like during the American colonial
yeah,
period, a couple books and stuff like that. So like there should be like a collective like database or something
yeah,
with all these different like folklores passed on from
yeah.
families.
The families, yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you have recordings, or if you want to record your elders, record them now, because a lot of the things I hear, especially when doing historical research, I get a lot of criticisms about how these are not recorded, these are just oral
Mm,
literature, they're not written down, so they're not accurate. Um,
yeah,
but for me, it's like if we don't record it now,
they'll
then
be
we might
lost.
lose it. Yeah,
Yeah, they'll be
yeah. Who's
lost.
gonna record it? They always say like if it's not recorded, then it's not true. Then if we don't record it, then how can
Yeah,
we preserve the
yeah.
the different culture, traditions, histories of our people? But yeah. So if you have
Mhm.
elders, or like the other day, I was talking to some college students, architecture students in Mindanao, in Davao,
Mm,
um, and they were just asking how they can use their social media skills to help preserve culture in terms of architecture, and the
mhm,
advice that me and the other person, the guest speaker, a Muslim architect from Mindanao, gave them is that you can start by documenting the
mm,
structures that are still around, especially for
yeah,
for architecture in Mindanao. A lot of the pre-colonial designs are still there. So start by documenting them, because if you don't document
Yeah,
them now, then
they'll be lost,
yeah, if there's another typhoon.
especially, in natural disasters,
Yeah,
like, you never know what might
yeah,
happen, and they'll just be lost.
yeah. So it's not too late to document.
Yeah,
Document them.
like, you don't have to be an archaeologist or a
Yeah,
historian to document, you know?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you don't have to. Social media alone, it's powerful when you
Yeah.
document things. Yay, thanks. Um, oh, someone's just greeting everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yes.
Thank you.
I forgot. Like, Christmas
Yeah,
like 2 days.
yeah, it's this week. Uh, this is a question, I guess for you. Do you have any personal myths or beliefs that you're willing to share?
Um, so, like, for me,
Mm.
I mostly work with Bisaya and Tagalog beliefs and practices. So, like, that's what I mostly know because, that's what I am.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, like, there's a couple. For example, let's see. There's one Bisayan belief in terms of, like, where the souls go, like, in the afterlife.
yeah.
Basically, I think a few people know, like, Pandaki,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think
Yeah,
some people might know that deity.
yeah,
Um, but, like, there's this concept of there's, like, this purgatory. So purgatory is known as sulad,
uh-huh.
right? And then sa'ad is basically the final resting place.
Mm.
And with Magwayan would take the dead souls, basically.
Mm.
Um, bring them on this, like, spiritual river, right? And actually
Yeah,
in Panay, right?
yeah,
And also in Negros or Buglas, which was the original name of the
yeah,
island.
yeah,
There's this belief of these, I think it was like seven or six mountains, no, seven mountains, right?
mm.
Between including Mount Canlaon,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
And there's these other mountains in the island of Panay. So, like, underneath, like underneath between the two islands, there's this, like, network of, like, caves and rivers.
yeah.
So from this river, it all leads to Mount Majas, which
Mm-mm.
basically is like Mount Olympus. Basically,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like there's a lot of mythology involving that mountain.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so there's, like, this concept of, like, the rivers, and it's not just in the Visayas. There's this concept, like, the rivers bring you to the afterlife. You see it in
yeah.
the Tagalog, the Ilocano. I
Mm-hmm.
think also,
Kapampangan.
yeah,
Yeah,
Kapampangan as well. Like, you
yeah,
see this, like, the upstream and downstream
yeah, yeah,
concept, right? And for Magwayan and Pandaki, so Magwayan brings all the souls to Sulad, right? And in Sulad, there are two giant guardian deities
yeah,
that guard Sulad. So for Pandaki, um, like, from the historical records, it basically mentions that Pandaki was given offerings for, the Paganito or Maganito, right?
yeah,
And they were given offerings facing Mount Majas, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so, whenever someone died, like, their kin, their family members would give, like, gold ornaments or,
yeah,
like, bahandi. Basically, that's like
yeah,
one of
yeah.
them. And that was so the soul can go to the afterlife. So once they
Mm.
gave those offerings to Pandaki, right? Pandaki would redeem those souls and bring them to, Salat. There was another also deity that
Yeah,
brought them to Saad, not Salat. um, and there's actually a common similar belief among the Tagalog as well.
yeah.
But the deities mentioned in that is listed in, like, that whole list from, like, the Laguna area that I
Mm.
mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. Um, So it's very, very, very similar. But yeah, that's, like, one of the beliefs in the Visayan mythology.
Mhm.
Um, trying to think of else. But yeah, but there's, like, a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. So yeah,
There's
especially
I
for
can
you.
Yeah, I can go on, like, all day.
Yeah, it could be an
With
entire series.
a whole series, yeah.
Yeah. Here's another question from Shade Gray. With the presence of numerous writing systems, including the alphabet brought by the Spaniards, why wasn't a lot of the culture recorded in writing?
Mm,
What was it? The systemic lack of education?
that's actually a good question.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, like in terms of our mythologies and folklore, again, it was
Mm,
oral literature. They
yeah.
didn't write. They did not like even if they had the writing scripts, they
Mhm,
did not use it for that. What they
yeah.
used the writing scripts for was like love letters to
Yeah.
someone else, or in terms of like trade. Like the most famous one, even though it's not babayin, is the
Mm,
Laguna Cupplate.
mm,
So like it
yeah.
was, I think it was forgiving some debt,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was in the was it Kawi
Kawi
script?
script. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of writing, it was more like letters,
Yeah.
to one another. But in terms of oral literature, that
Yeah.
was, you know, in terms of like mythology and folklore and
Mm,
things like that, it was all through oral literature.
yeah.
Like in terms of like songs,
Mm,
chants, things like that.
yeah.
So that's the reason, we don't really see a lot of
Yeah.
writing from our ancestors in terms of like mythology
Yeah.
because it
That's
was
true. Yeah.
all oral.
Yeah, and yeah, they did write. They used the writing in terms of like more daily communication, like
Yeah.
like what we use for DMs or text
Yeah.
messages today. Yeah,
The
that's
old
what they
style
use.
of messaging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, uh,
Like for example, like, I mean, yeah, we do talk about like mythology, but in terms of like text messaging to someone else, like we don't really say like, okay, what was the mythology of so and
yeah,
so, like in terms of
yeah,
that. So yeah.
yeah. And in terms of written stuff too, um, the question too is like partly like why wasn't a lot of culture recorded in writing? So from what I know in researching literature in Kapampangan literature, um, before World War II or before the 60s actually, there's actually a ton of books written in Kapampangan,
Mm,
magazines and newspapers written in Kapampangan. So literature before the 60s in the Philippines was very vibrant. Were very like lively. For
mhm,
example, yeah, again in Kapampangan, there's like proportionally someone did a study on it. There's more newspapers and magazines published for Kapampangan people in terms of proportionate to their population than
mhm,
Tagalog. But I guess it's because how Filipino or Tagalog language has been the national language in the Philippines that a lot of
mhm,
these older books have been not necessarily forgotten, but if you don't speak the language anymore and you don't
I
really
can understand it.
have access to these books, and yeah, and again, a lot of the books were destroyed in World War II. A lot of
Mhm,
the archives in the Philippines were destroyed when Manila was burned in World War II. So yeah, in terms of writing, there was a lot in a way.
yeah.
There's a lot of writing that was done by a lot of older scholars that have been either destroyed or just forgotten, or just
Mhm, yeah.
older books they
Yeah.
deteriorate too. And yeah, there's also the materials our ancestors used for writing in Baybayin or any of the other scripts were
Like
except for the Laguna copper
bamboo.
plate that was metal.
Yeah.
A lot of it were
Most of
just
it
like
was bamboo and like
bamboos and palm leaf.
perishable.
Yeah, yeah. Or what was it called? There's a type of palm leaf paper that they use, but it deteriorates
Yeah.
faster than what we have now. But yeah, that's my addition to the answer to the question. Here's another question that if you want to answer: are there any Filipino
Mhm.
epics that survived that are along the lines of the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Yeah. There's a few. Like I know there's one from Bicol that was made into fragments. I forgot the name of that one. Um, the in Panay, they're known as like the Panay like epics. Most of those epics were like recorded even like recently, like in the 90s.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think the first person who like I don't want to say discovered, but like
Hmm.
found those
Yeah.
epics was Felipe Jocano,
Oh
who
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
anthropologist. I think
yeah.
like in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
He went to Panay
But not
and
yet.
yeah, and he documented a few from the Panay Bicudnon, which
Yeah.
is one of the indigenous groups there.
Mhm.
They're mostly like in the like the central part of Panay.
Yeah.
Um, and he recorded that, and then recently, like in the 90s, there's another anthropologist who, Alicia
Mm.
Magos, right?
Yeah,
Who's a
yeah,
Visayas professor.
yeah, yeah,
She did a lot. She actually printed. They made like a couple of like volumes of books of transcribing these
mm,
epics. So
yeah,
they went over there. They recorded them,
yeah,
um, and they're very 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 long epics.
yeah,
Um, like I have a few of the volumes. I don't have it with me at the moment. It's upstairs. But like they're very big books. So if you can manage to get them, like they do talk um,
yeah.
a lot about the deities and like some of the folklores. And actually, there's two that's mentioned in the epics, right? That were mentioned historically in the Spanish accounts.
Yeah.
Like so, you know, they're still around. Like for example, Laon. Laon in the Laon, most people might know them as like Lalahon, as like
Mm,
a fire goddess, but they're not. She's not a fire goddess. That
yeah,
was again another mistransliteration in the English
yeah.
text. What they were referring to, like in the Spanish text, was like the volcano Mount Canlaon, like hurling
Mm,
fire, not like the
mm,
actual goddess, themselves. But Laon was mentioned in historical texts as like an agricultural deity.
mhm.
In the Panay Bicaynon epics, they're known as Laon Sina, right? Or Alon
Yeah.
Sina, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
don't see that.
yeah, yeah. And Sina actually means like foreign. So, but also like Laon themselves historically was also known as Laon Sina, and there's
Mm,
actually other names for Laon. So in Leyte and Samar, they knew the name Laon, but they
yeah.
also called them Makapatag in like the male gendered form of
Oh,
Laon. So there was two like versions that
yeah.
they saw of Laon.
I see. Yeah.
In Bohol, I think it was Raom. So it was like
Mm,
Raom, but they're all the same deity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. There's a lot of epics that are like quite a
Yeah,
few
there's a lot
epics
of
that are
epics.
still
I
there.
think
Yeah.
there's also an Ilocano one too. I don't remember. I
Mm,
don't know too much on Ilocano. I'm
yeah.
actually just like starting to really look into Ilocano
Yeah.
folklore.
The one I can think of right now is from Mindanao, in Maranao,
Yeah,
the
they have
Ragan,
that too. Yeah, that
the
one.
Ragan epic where the dancing kill actually comes from.
Mm,
Yeah, so that's another one that's really long too. From what I
yeah.
remember, it's like if you recite it orally, it's like it takes days
Mhm.
to complete.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's a lot. I think I remember the one in Ilocano now, the Biyag ni Lamang. That
yeah.
was a
Like it's like in fragments, and
yeah,
there's like another one for in Bicol. Like I forgot the name of that one also,
yeah,
but there's another one there. But like in terms of like epics, I feel like there's still a lot more. It's just
yeah.
that
We have it.
there
Yeah.
needs to be like more support,
Mhm.
especially from the government, because you don't see a lot of support from the government in terms
Yeah,
of like anthropology, archaeology.
yeah.
Because I remember like even I went to where did I go? The Angono like
Mm.
petroglyphs
Yeah,
in
the cave.
Rizal.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the Cape. One of the workers there, like he worked with the National like Museum thing over there,
yeah, yeah.
and I remember like this conversation that we had a few years ago, like how there was a lot of like graffiti and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But, like there's not a lot of support from
Yeah.
the government to support the anthropologists and archaeologists and like protecting these sites and like looking at more sites.
Mm, yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
like, I
there's
feel
just
like there's more epics to be found. Like for example, the Panay Bikunon that was only found like in the 80s, 90s.
yeah.
So I feel
Imagine.
like there's a lot more. It's just like a lot more people have to get more involved
Yeah,
in
we
terms
just
of
need to.
finding these, epics.
Yeah, we need more people, dedicated people, and support.
Yeah,
Not just because I'm pretty sure we have a lot of like passionate people around that are really interested in doing a lot of this work and documenting these epics. But it's just sometimes like what you mentioned, there's like that lack of support. Because
yeah, lack
it
of
does need
support.
resources for
Yeah,
you to be able to do this kind of work. And yeah. In terms of lack of support, I was just thinking about there's a lot of people are not familiar with it, but in Pampanga, there's actually a couple of archaeological sites that were
Mm.
diggings that were done decades before in the 60s and 90s. But now it's I think it's now it's a subdivision, like a housing
Mm.
subdivision. So a lot of it were
Oh,
neglected, and then because there's not much, the archaeologists are still actually interested in digging more. It's just that they don't have much funding anymore, so they had to leave it, and now it was sold to a developer, and now it's something else.
yeah.
So we do have a lot of passionate people who are willing to do the work. It's just we need to actually have support. Yeah.
And I feel like in terms of support, like with the
Mhm.
how like so many people, like especially nowadays, are just trying to find all this information,
Mhm.
on our folklore, not just folklore,
Yeah.
but like who our ancestors were
Yeah.
prior to colonization. You know, through that, you know, being passionate about that and
Mhm.
showing that this is what we're interested in, that will bring more support for,
Yeah.
those who are doing this work.
Yeah.
Like for example, like the Boxer Codex.
Mhm. Mhm.
Remember? So like
Yeah.
it was expensive, but then
Yeah.
as soon as it became like cheap, where the
Yeah.
point where anyone could get it, so many people bought that, and it became
Yeah.
like in the top of the sellers list.
Yeah. Sold out.
Like
Yeah.
it bought. I actually have the book on me. Hold on one
Okay.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah.
So it's this
Mhm. I
copy
have
of Boxer
copies
Codex.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This
it's
one's over
like
here.
as soon as it was available, so many people bought it.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
like it brought, that information from that,
Yeah.
historical manuscript to the people. So
Closer,
they
yeah,
could
to the
read it
people. Yeah.
themselves instead of
Yeah.
just like looking at like, you know,
Yeah.
online or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I remember back then it was really hard to find like an English
Mhm.
translation
Yeah.
of the manuscript. And I think the National Museum like had like this machine or something that you
Mm.
could see like some of the chapters.
Yeah. But not the entire book. Yeah.
Yeah. But now it's widely available and like
Yeah.
everyone has access to that. So
Yeah. That's true. The more access we
yeah.
need more, or yeah, access is very
Like
important.
there's a good number of people who are
Yeah.
passionate about that. It's just
Yeah.
like bringing it to the point where the government actually realizes like this
Mhm.
is important,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah. Yeah. More resources too for folks
for funding.
to dig deeper. Um. Just time check. It's now 11
Nothing.
something in New York.
Yeah, it's like 11. It's fine.
Okay. Maybe we can go for a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Um, da-da-da. Where is the comment? I thought I saw a question that I was thinking of highlighting. I lost the
Oh,
comment.
someone mentioned the name of the Ilocano epic.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
think that's what I
Ninamang.
was
Yeah.
thinking. Got it. This one. Is that one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, so there's a lot of different epics. And, and there's a lot more that we can still,
Mm.
really, I don't want to say discover, but recover
Cover.
from being lost. Yeah. Thanks for the questions so far. If folks have more questions, let us know. Oh, hey, Joshua saying hi, or hey, New York. Hello from
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Yeah,
Massachusetts.
cool.
Hi.
You're not alone in being up this late. Oops. Maybe I'll go do a check on the fundraiser.
Mhm.
So yeah, again, this is a fundraiser for typhoon relief. Let me just refresh the website with the live count. Oh, cool. So when we started, or today, let me just do the math. I'm not good at math. I'm gonna do a calculator.
Don't worry, I'm not good at math either.
That's why I'm a historian. So when we started, it was 7,031, and now it's 7,509. So this is now the amount.
Oh,
Oh, cool. So in the last
Yeah,
2 hours, it's
yeah.
$478.88 that we raised
Good
for
job,
the
guys.
Typhoon. Yay! Thank you for donating to everybody who donated.
Yeah.
Um, this is a very timely and needed, and the thing too with NAFCON, for those who are not familiar with our fundraisers for typhoon relief in the Philippines, it's actually ongoing. From what I remember, we actually send um, funds to the different disaster relief and disaster reduction um, centers in the Philippines, especially in Visayas and Mindanao, quite regularly. We send it every few months, and then whenever there's a typhoon, that's when we try to send every week. So yeah, so we're gonna make sure that this $7,000 is gonna go straight to the folks who need it in the Philippines in a few days, in the next coming days. Cool. Okay, this is a question that we both can answer, but you can answer first. What are your thoughts about GMA's Amaya? I remember watching it when I was in elementary, and everyone learned new words like Dátû,
Mm,
Rája, or Hara, and yeah, through it.
yeah. Like I enjoyed Amaya. I mean, there's some aspects of Amaya I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, but like the show itself, I felt like it kind of opened everyone's eyes to like
Hmm.
how our ancestors were, at least in the Visayas.
Yeah.
Because that's where Amaya takes place in the
Yeah.
Visayas. Um, but yeah, like a lot of people didn't know what Datu, Raha, or like
Yeah.
any like words. Like they had actually, I remember, I think they had like words popping up on the screen, like with the
Oh
definitions.
yeah, yeah.
I think
They
it was
use,
something like
yeah,
that. And then
yeah,
like
from the
also
beginning.
with like some, I think there were some like creatures that they mentioned
Mhm.
in the show. Like they
Yeah.
had like this whole like visual thing, and then like they listed names of creatures. I know they also did that with the Diwata as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I like Amaya in terms of like for someone who doesn't like, for
Yeah.
example, someone who didn't really know too much
Mhm,
about
mhm.
pre-colonial Visayas. It kind of can like bring them interested, like lead them up to that basically.
Yeah.
There are some things in Amaya, obviously it's a teleseria, there's some common teleseria things that was just like okay, whatever. But
That's
like
true. Yeah.
in terms of that, but like Amaya is literally the only show really.
Yeah.
um, there's Indio. I didn't really like Indio, to be honest with you. I don't like that show at all. Um, even back then. But in terms of like showing like the pre-colonial prior to the Spaniards,
Yeah.
that's literally the only show. And
Mhm.
it's been like how many years? Like there should be another show
Yeah.
by this point.
They should. There should be. Yeah.
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 Yeah, so for me, it's the same, almost the same answer. Overall, I liked Amaya. I enjoyed watching it. There are some aspects that are like too kind of cringy for me, and like, but
Yeah.
overall, like in the Philippines, especially where people don't really have act or don't. It's an eye opening thing for a lot of
Yeah.
Filipinos who are not aware of how not even how our ancestors dressed like.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of the textbooks you're gonna actually see them wearing um, scanty clothing because they're uncivilized.
Yeah. Yeah. But
um,
now it's like nowadays, like I guess
yeah,
from that, more
there's a lot.
people know like how they
Yeah,
actually dressed up. It wasn't just like scantily clothed. Like now
yeah,
they actually know how they dressed up. And
yeah,
like one of the earliest illustrations, I think it is like one of the only
yeah.
illustrations, is from the Boxer Codex. Like that's where they got a lot of their designs
Hmm.
for Amaya. They got
Yeah,
it from the illustrations in the Boxer Codex.
yeah. So that's actually one of my favorite parts in the Maya is the costumes, how they were able to
Mm.
um, um, show how vibrant the
Yeah,
fabrics were and the ornaments were and how everybody dressed back then. So that was
yeah,
a lot of um, good things that came out of this show, and hopefully
mhm.
there's more of
Yeah.
these kind of shows that
Hopefully,
will come out.
like if there's another show, like I would
Yeah,
honestly support it.
yeah, cool. I guess this is just I like how they use. Oh yeah, they use slightly deeper Tagalog and Bisaya
Mm,
words. And being American born Filipino, I always hear so much Taglish that I wanted to learn more about the language. Yeah, they
yeah,
did. Like when you mentioned some of, especially the earlier episode, I remember those words that they defined on screen to help
yeah.
folks
Like
remember.
it's actually what I actually was impressed in it because like in the earlier episodes, you could see like they didn't use completely like Tagalog. They
Yeah.
used some influence, like modern like Spanish loan
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, they wouldn't say that
Yeah.
back in the day. But like as you went along, you saw less of that. Like
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
watch more of the episodes, you
Yeah.
saw that, being fixed.
Yeah. What was the other question about the Maya that I saw? Oh, it's just a question. Where can I watch a Maya? I believe it's still on
It's on YouTube.
YouTube
Yeah.
now.
You
The
can
full
watch on
episodes. Yeah.
all the episodes on YouTube.
Yeah.
The only thing with that is it's not like, because I know some people who don't know too much of Tagalog,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
want to watch a Maya. They don't have like English translations.
Yeah.
They actually used to be
Yeah.
like the Viki site, like back in the day, like
Oh yeah.
just people who other Filipinos, like they helped
Yeah.
translate it into English and other languages. It was actually interesting because back in the day, like Amaya was also like popular in other countries.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Like
gonna say that too.
yeah, like I remember there's someone that I know who's like Indonesian, and she was watching it and she's like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, I love this show." Yeah, like but now that site and those videos are gone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can still watch it on YouTube.
I think I remember seeing a Maya dubbed in Africa or Cambodia.
Yeah,
Or
like
both.
it was in South America as
Yeah.
well. Like I know a lot of people were watching it there. So like it was really like worldwide back in the
Yeah.
back in the day.
Oh, here's a comment from Naomi about the Maya. They said that they needed to use two vans just for the jewelry alone.
Yeah.
I
Oh, and I wonder what they did with the Karakoa.
know. I
They
know.
recreated
Is it
that. I
still
don't know.
around?
Yeah, like did they display it? Like I hope they didn't like tear it down because that was actually
Yeah.
like a pretty good
Yeah. It's
like
a little bit smaller, but it's still pretty good for what it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a question. Lou Raymond. I think there was some Bahasa Malayo being spoken in Maya. Yeah. When they
Yeah,
talked to the foreign traders, they did
yeah.
use Bahasa. I
Yeah,
remember.
and it's interesting because like that was the lingua franca
Yeah.
like in the day. Like that was the language that was spoken because of trade.
Yeah.
So like throughout the islands, what is now known as the Philippines, and then
Yeah.
also with like Indonesia and Malaysia, like it was spoken because of trade.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, one of Magellan's crew, one of his former slaves, spoke
Yeah.
Bahasa. So
Yeah.
when they reached Cebu, they were able to converse with the
Mhm.
Dátûs and the Rájas in
Yeah.
Cebu. They spoke Bahasa. So that tells us that we're out there. We were not isolated. We were not
No,
uncivilized.
not us
We
at
spoke
all.
many languages. Yeah. Oh, fun fact too. I just want to share since I mentioned 1521 when Magellan. After Magellan died, when they left, when they
Mhm.
frantically left Visayas because they were getting killed, they
Oh, right.
ended up in Borneo or Brunei, and they
Mhm.
actually encountered the Prince of Luzon back then, and he had a servant who spoke Spanish.
Mm.
So that tells us like there's already a Spanish speaking person. At least one person that was recorded to spoke Spanish from Manila in 1521 before it was
Mm.
colonized. So like 50 years before Manila was conquered. So
Mhm.
there's just a lot of like untold history out there that
Yeah.
we need to
Well, I
research.
mean, they could have came from like
Yeah,
Portuguese.
yeah,
Like
that's
they could have spoken Spanish, but like
yeah,
they were part of like the Portuguese.
yeah.
Portugal did I
Mhm.
forgot which country.
Malacca in Malaysia. Yeah,
Yeah,
they were
Malaysia. Okay.
already there 10 years before
Yeah,
Cebu.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, there's just a lot of like details that they kind of hid from the mainstream story of how they
yeah,
discovered the Philippines.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's not just they didn't really just discover. Like it was
yeah,
already
yeah,
there's already trade networks. Like they already knew. Like they've seen Europeans before. Like
yeah, yeah,
with the Portuguese at least. Like it wasn't you know completely new to them or whatever.
yeah. Actually, what do you call this? Magellan was already in Malaysia, or what
Mm.
is now Malaysia, before 10 years before he was in the Visayas.
Hmm.
So that's how we know that he knew about the Philippines, that it
Yeah.
existed before he ended up in the Philippines. A question related to Amaya. Was Bahasa Melayu popularized by the Majapahit? I guess I can answer this one. No. Um, Bahasa Melayu was popularized in Southeast Asia by Malacca, actually, the Sultanate of
Mhm.
Malacca in what is now Malaysia. And because it was the center of trading back then. So Majapahit actually spoke Javanese, so not Bahasa, so it's different. What else can we answer? I thought oh, there we go. Here. I want to hear more about Filipino oral historians, or some of the longer epics can take days or weeks to tell entirely. Oh, I guess it's more of a comment. It's not a question. But yeah,
Hmm.
me too. I want to hear more of these.
Yeah. But like it does take days. Like for
Yeah.
example, the Panay Bicudnon, like there's different chapters within the whole
Yeah.
epic. Like there's epics within an epic.
Yeah.
And that could take just days chanting.
Yeah. What else is there? Oh, here. I remember that some grandmothers or grandfathers use these folklores to frighten their grandchildren. How do you react with it?
I mean, I feel like they also probably did that back in the day as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's kind of universal.
Yeah.
um but in terms of like folklores, it depends on what the folklore is.
Yeah.
Like, for
Yeah.
example, the Aswang folklore, like that's fine because
Yeah.
pre-colonially also that's what they believed as well. Anyway, um yeah, I don't know how to react to
Yeah.
that.
I guess you react depending on what the
Depends
what
on
the
yeah, depends on what the
story
folklore
was.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if it's in terms of like the deities, maybe I would react a little bit negatively. But like other types of folklore, like the aswang,
Yeah.
tikbalang, etc. Depends.
That's true. Yeah. Here's another comment. My mother mentioned there's folks in the mountains of Cebu who tell the nativity story through chanting. So
Hmm,
it's more of a folk Christianity where they tell the story in chant.
interesting.
I'm not familiar with Cebu, but I can share in Pampanga. In during the Holy Week in Pampanga, we have Tagalogs have it too, pabasa, or
Mhm.
the reading of the Passion of the Christ.
Mm.
And the way actually the way Kapapangas read it is the way they used to chant pre-colonially. So the tone, like
Mm.
the how they or the melody of the voice when they read it is from pre-colonial chanting. So that's
Mm.
how chanting was preserved to even though they're reading the story of Jesus, but back then they would use it to
Yeah.
read epics. So there's a because my family used to do it, or they still do it in the Philippines. My
Mhm.
grandma's family, she's the 12th child, and so there's like 12 siblings. So every
Oh,
summer, every Holy Week, every year is a different branch of the family
mhm.
that hosts it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we would host, and we have this. I'm not sure how old the book was, but it was like fragile old book that where they
Mm.
read the thing, and it's a very it takes a lot of talent to actually do the melody right.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. Or I know kind of know how, but I cannot do a full chapter of the book.
Full chapter
Maybe
chanted
a few sentences I can. Yeah, cool. Thanks for the question. It's getting pretty late,
late.
or longer than I planned, because I usually just do 2 hours
Mhm.
at most, and now we are 2 hours and 25 minutes, 24 minutes. Um, how long? I guess we can stay for a few more minutes
It's up
if
to you.
Scott did.
Right.
Yeah. Where someone said, or random, but is it true that some women in pre-colonial Philippines would reshape their heads for beautifications?
They did.
Yeah.
But not just women as well. It was both
Mhm.
men and women.
Mhm.
It's called like I think it's like skull molding.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a certain like they use like a stone, especially like when they were younger. So like they
Yeah.
would mold it a certain way. I forgot how they did it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um
And you can actually find it in the Boxer Codex, right? There's
yeah,
a
I think
depiction, one of the depictions. Yeah,
yeah,
has
I
that
think they do.
the shape of the head.
Yeah. And then besides molding of the head, they also
Yeah.
stain their teeth. So they would
Yeah.
either stain it like either red or black.
Black.
And
Yeah.
then they also did like gold dentistry
Yeah.
on the teeth. So there are a couple of like skull like artifacts that still do
Yeah.
have this like gold
It's still there.
yeah, it's still there on the teeth.
Yeah.
So like in the records they said like how they compared like the gold ornaments that were stuck on the teeth with the black and
Mhm.
red stained teeth. So it's like kind of like a contrast because like back then um they saw white teeth as like ugly and Yeah, they didn't like you would not really see any white teeth.
Yeah.
So there's some historical texts. For example, like with there's one text of like Opalaki.
Mhm.
There's like a historical text. I think it's by what was it Diego Duarte in like 1640
Oh
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. They talk about like some Pangasinan men who are like hiking in the mountain, and
Yeah.
they have like they see like Opalaki and hear Opalaki. So like in the text, it's basically it says like the foreigners like with white teeth, right? But because to them, like no one really had white teeth. They had either like
Yeah.
stained their teeth black or red.
Yeah.
It was kind of like considered like an insult in a way
Yeah.
because
It's
they
more like
compare like having like white teeth and like flat teeth because they also like filed their teeth as well.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
sharper teeth. Yeah.
they sharpened it. So like if you had like teeth that were sharpened or they were white, they saw like they compared it like as a pig, basically. So it was like it's seen as an insult.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So those are like one of like the pre-colonial like beauty standards
Yeah.
in the
We
day.
have a different beauty standards back then.
Different, yeah.
It's we're clean. We were clean. We
Yeah,
were very clean as people.
they're very obsessed with water. Like
Yeah.
they would bathe every morning, bathe every day. Like it's they were very obsessed. And I know like they would also keep like jars like
Mhm.
outside the homes where they would just like kind of like purify themselves or
Yeah.
just get rid of all like the dirt or whatever.
Yeah.
Like so
Before.
they're
Yeah.
clean. They're very, very clean.
Yeah. They were really
Yeah.
very obsessed with cleanliness.
Yeah.
What else is there we can answer? Let's really get to our topic. Our topic today is mythology and
That's all.
pre-colonial culture, broadly pre-colonial
But
mythologies
the
and
main
culture.
topic was on Bakunawa and other
Yeah,
clips, but then we kind of went to like just general mythology.
yeah. So if you have questions about Bakunawa, we can bring back Bakunawa if you want. We can wake Bakunawa from the depths of whatever layer Bakunawa is sleeping right now. um, Someone is asking, I forgot the title, but there was a mythology about two giants fighting and throwing literal islands at each other.
Mm.
That's why the island or the archipelago was created. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard of this one too. Yeah,
there's a lot of them.
yeah.
Actually, speaking of giants, there's a lot of giants in the
Hmm.
Philippines. Like even Francisco Osina mentioned this in his text. Like
Hmm.
throughout the Philippines, there's just these beliefs in giants. Like they were everywhere. Like that's what he said in the
Yeah.
text. Like, they were everywhere. And you see these giants. You see in Ilocano, like the giant. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Angalao or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That
yeah.
was
I know
one
what you're saying.
giant. Um, in the Visayas, they also had giants as
Mhm.
well. In where is it? I think it was in Samar. Samar or
Mm-mm.
Leyte, I don't remember. But they have a deity that was seen as a giant. I forgot the name of it. But like they were seen like this big, huge giant
Mm-mm.
basically. And it was known as they're known as like primarily like a fishing deity.
Mm-mm.
Um but there's other like attributes for this deity as well. I can't remember the name of it though at the moment. But yeah, that was in Samar Leyte.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of giants like beliefs throughout the Philippines.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard a couple ones. I just couldn't remember names.
Yeah.
I'm trying to scroll back if we miss any of questions. Oh, here. Um, about the gender fluidity, one thing I remember reading about is the Kapati, about them being either transgender fluid or androgynous. I just think that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they're intersex.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the documents, Ikapati or Lakapati, they're the same.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, they describe them like in terms of like the old terminology, which today is seen as like derogatory. They use
Mhm.
hermaphrodite
Yeah.
to describe them.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like derogatory nowadays. So like most people use intersex
Yeah. Yeah.
to describe. But yeah, like they saw that. But even like with deities themselves, like they weren't a lot of the deities. It wasn't just goddess, god, female, male. Like there's different versions of the
Mhm.
same deity that, depending on the folklore, they saw them as a god or they saw them as a goddess.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
again,
it's just very gender neutral
yeah,
for
yeah.
most of them.
Different people saw them differently.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. At Ligaya, there seems to be similarities between Bakunawa and do you know? I'm not sure if you know how to answer this, but
Mm.
other great dragon mythologies from around the world. Can you speak about this?
So I actually don't know anything about Leviathan.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that, so I don't know the similarities between that.
Okay.
Um,
It's okay.
but yeah, like other great dragon. So yeah, like again, Bukuna was very similar to the Hindu Rahu,
Hmm.
which was another eclipse. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they were dragon as well, like a
Yeah.
Naga. Um,
Uh, oh yeah. Rahu has two bodies, if I'm not or
yeah, I think like the mythology from that was like it was from another deity, and they cut
mhm,
off. I think they cut off the head.
the head.
So
Yeah.
Rahu was the head, and
Yeah.
then
The
Ketu
other
was
one.
the
Yeah.
rest of the body.
The
Yeah,
rest of the body that merged with a serpent, from what I remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think both are like associated with the eclipse, but it's more
Yeah.
like Rahu that is associated with eclipse.
Yeah, that's causing because he's. I think the story was that Rahu swallows the moon or the sun, and then it comes out of his neck because he's beheaded.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of pretty long. How about the Subanen tribe they called Suba, name derived from the people from the river, the largest ethnic group in Zamboanga archipelago? Um, I guess it's more of a statement than a question.
Mm.
Yeah, so the Western Subanen said Subanen Subang sa Adlaw or rise of the sun. The Subanen shifted its Raja to Bunawai, the first people to live in Zamboanga archipelago,
Mm.
Lumat, before Islam and Spanish. Oh, cool. Yeah. Subanen tribe, or a lot of the you know, the Filipino culture nights in the U.S. The performances that they do. A lot of some of the dances are from Sumanin, from what I
Yeah. A lot of
remember.
it's from like Mindanao
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
like all the dance trips. Is that a Mindanao or like the Cordillera, like
yeah.
Kalinga
The
and
dances that they
yeah.
perform. Yeah, cool. Oops, what did I do? Question from Lady Beth. How about Minokawa and Mamanukan? I guess there's speak more about that too.
Yeah. So we talked about Minakawa earlier.
Mhm.
Tigmananukan, I'm not sure if it was the crab or
Yeah.
the what's it called? The a tarantula. There we go. The spider like one. I'm not sure if it was that one. Because
Uh, I,
there's similar words for that, but no. Tigmananukan was the bird.
yeah, in
Yeah,
Tagalog, right?
the fairy bird, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
manok.
I
But
think from what I
there's another term for the one that's like the crab and the
oh yeah.
tarantula that causes the eclipse. It's a very similar word. I just don't remember what
Yeah,
was that.
let me see. I wrote it down earlier. It starts with a T.
Yeah, it's T.
Um, where did I write it down?
Yeah.
Um, Tambanakawa.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it was. But Tigmamanukan is the bird, like the fairy bird. It was like an
yeah,
omen bird.
yeah,
And I think there was like a direction. Like if you saw the bird, I think there was a direction. If you were like walking somewhere or you were traveling somewhere,
yeah,
I think they would like find. They would look to like what direction the bird was flying from. I
yeah,
forget which direction was what. Like we could just like look it up in Google, but like I always
yeah,
forget like which direction the bird
yeah.
came from.
From what I remember to Tingmamanukan, if I'm not mistaken, is the bird that opened the bamboo where the first man and women
Yeah,
came
that's
out.
one of the like different folklores. There's
Yeah,
actually like different names for that bird. Like there's
yeah,
that and then a
that's
mihan.
true. Yeah, yeah, I've heard of Bihan too. Yeah,
Yeah, that was one.
cool. Any other questions from our viewers before we let Ate Ligaya go? It's almost midnight
Yeah,
in New
it's
York.
fine. I slept earlier before this because I actually got like my booster.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but like it made me tired. I got the booster in the morning, so I was like, let me
Yeah,
just fall asleep before this.
that's good.
Yeah, so I'm good. But yeah, I don't know about you. You might.
I'm okay. It's only 8 o'clock here, but yeah. Here's
Oh,
a question: Are ancestors more of a moon worshiper or sun worshippers?
um, they were both equally. So I actually made like a couple of posts with this regarding the moon. So especially like with the full moon and the new moon. So for the Tagalog at least, I mean like this for the both of the Tagalog and Visayans, they did worship the moon. But in for the Tagalog, um, in Felipe Pardo's manuscript, he does mention that there was a deity, like a moon deity. It's actually not Mayari. A lot of
Yeah,
people think
yeah,
the Tagalog moon
yeah,
goddess was Mayari, but it's not Mayari. It's
yeah.
there's a few names for it. One of them is Kulalaing.
Mm-hmm.
The other name is Dalaga Nasa Buwan,
Mm-hmm.
right? So those were the two names based on like the oldest dictionaries, and then Felipe Pardo's
Mm-hmm.
account on it. So they would give like they would celebrate both the new moon and the full moon. The new moon for the Tagalog, they would give offerings to the moon goddess
Mm-hmm.
Kulalaying, and asking them for prosperity.
Yeah.
It was associated with prosperity. So there
Mm-hmm.
is actually a chant. I think it was there was a chant for the Tagalog
Mm-hmm.
moon goddess. I forgot how it was, but they did say this chant basically asking for like prosperity.
Yeah.
And they also celebrated during the full moon. And depending on the new moon and the full moon, they would give like I think it was like two roosters in the
Mm-hmm.
full moon. The new moon was like one chicken, one rooster.
Yeah.
And then among the Visayans, the full moon was considered like the time when the Diwata came down to earth, like
Mm-hmm.
for the 3 days. And in other ethnic groups, you actually still see this, especially like in Mindanao,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not just the Diwata, but it's also like the Nito or like the spirits, like the
Mm-hmm.
ancestors, like during the full moon, they're out and
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are a couple. Then the sun, um, you know, a lot of the major deities, especially in Luzon, were sun deities.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
Opalaki. Opalaki is like another version of Apong Sinakuan,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Opalaki is known pretty much throughout Luzon. So
Yeah.
they were also known to, the Kapampangan because
Mm-hmm.
the myth of like Opalaki and Mayari like fighting one another
Yeah. It's
was originally told from Kapampangan.
yeah.
Leopoldo something,
Yeah.
Layog or something.
Yeah. Layog, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, the original, like the oldest account that we know of.
Yeah.
And then it was later
Yeah.
retold being a Tagalog myth by Felipe Chocano.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he doesn't mention like where his source
Where he
was.
found it. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true. He
yeah,
didn't mention it. Yeah.
yeah, he didn't really list like where he got his information from, but
Yeah.
there is some
That's true.
for that. And then yeah, so they were Opalaki was sun and war god, and they were
Mm.
known to the Pangasinan, like I
Yeah.
mentioned that
Like I said, yeah.
historical account. I believe they were also known to the Sambali.
Mm-hmm.
They were the term Opalaki was also even known to Bicol as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for them, it wasn't a deity; it was more like a creature or some type of spirit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but the god themselves was known. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I was
that's
gonna mention that too earlier. How in Luzon they're mostly sun. Not necessarily mean that they don't uh worship the moon. It's just that they a lot of them focus on the sun as a
yeah,
more focal point of the
yeah.
thing.
Because like in the Visayas, you also have like moon and
Yeah,
sun deities. So
yeah,
in one of the variations of the Visayan creation myth, it's also pretty much the same myth
yeah,
um, in Bicol, but it's just different names for the deities, but
yeah,
the same
yeah,
exact myth. So it's
yeah.
like there was a marriage between the sea and the sky, right? So
Mm.
Lidagat and Lihangin,
Yeah.
right? Um, and basically they married and they had a couple of children, and basically I think it was like four children. So there
Mm.
was the deity for the stars,
Yeah.
Lisuga, yeah, and then there was Liadlaw, who was the sun,
Sun, yeah.
Libulan, the moon, and forgot the other one at the moment, but that one was with the Earth. I forgot the name.
Yeah,
Something.
yeah, I know what you're talking about
It was associated with
though.
Earth. Yeah, and that was the one that kind of like led this like
Yeah,
war against the grandparents, which is Kaptan and Magwayan in the folklore.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, he led like this kind of revolts, and he brought his other brothers
yeah,
to join in. So yeah, we do have deities, sun and moon, but
mhm,
not. It wasn't as like place of like importance compared to like Opalaki and
mhm, mhm.
Apong Sinukuan
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Luzon. So
yeah. So for those who are familiar with Luzon geography, Apong Sinuhuan or Apolaki in other culture is the one that resided in Mount Arayat,
hmm,
in the middle of the central Luzon field. Like, because central Luzon is very flat. There's one big mountain in the middle called Mount Arayat in English, or Bundok Alaya in Kapampangan,
yeah,
and then across the the field in
it was like a
Zambales.
little across the
Yeah,
way.
like a huge field. There's Mount Pinatubo, the volcano that erupted, and that was
Yeah,
believed to be the home of Malyari or Mayari, the
mm,
moon deity, which again, the gender was fluid. Mayari sometimes is, or Malyari or Mayari sometimes depicted as, especially for the Aitas, he was more of an old man, but for
yeah,
Kapampangan, sometimes she's a woman. So
yeah,
there's like a lot of different,
yeah. Like they were seen as It also depends on the story. Like they were either seen as siblings
yeah,
or
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I
Usually
think there was like
siblings
one
are
folk.
fighting
Yeah,
over who's gonna rule
they're
over
always
who,
fighting.
right?
Yeah, they're always fighting over like
Yeah,
who would rule.
yeah. And
During
then
the day and
they
night.
hurt the moon. The moon lost one eye. The light
Yeah,
dimmed, and then the sun felt bad, so they shared the day and the
yeah,
night.
equally, and that's why during a night, that's why it's not as bright
Yeah,
because
the,
in the folklore, both of them, the light shone through their eyes.
yeah,
So when Mayari's eye was down, blinded,
yeah.
that's why
She
it's
lost
dim at
half
night.
of
Yeah,
half of her light. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So there's they were both depending on where you are in the Philippines, but a lot of them were moon and sun worshippers.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's see what else can we. Uh, oh, I guess this is a question. What was the most prominent religion or form of belief during pre-colonial Philippines and most of Southeast Asia?
So it depends. I mean, there was different like
Yeah.
there was some elements of Hinduism and Buddhism. Like we
Mm,
know that from historical artifacts.
yeah.
And even in like the Laguna copperplate, the calendar that they used was a Hindu Buddhist calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's how we also know. And there's also like again like in the archaeological artifacts, we have a Kanari who is like a Hindu Buddhist
Mm-hmm.
figure. We have again the Garuda, which eventually from the Garuda in Hindu Buddhist mythology, it got localized,
Yeah.
to Garuda,
Yeah.
um, and things like that. So those beliefs were in the Philippines at one
Yeah.
point, but in terms of like native, not monotheistic beliefs.
Yeah.
It's more like animism, basically. Like
Yeah.
there was polytheism as well, but it's more like animistic
Yeah.
beliefs.
Yeah. One thing to note too for pre-colonial belief in the Philippines and in general in Southeast Asia is that it was very I guess fluid in many sense, because whenever there's a new influence that comes in, they adapt
Mm. They
certain
adapt.
elements from it. So when Hinduism
Yeah.
came in and Buddhism came in, they adapted like what you mentioned earlier. And then when in the Philippines, when Christianity came in, they adopted, like for example in Cebu, Santo Niño, the
Mm.
little
Yeah.
deity
Yeah.
was
But
from
it's
Santo
also
Niño.
with among the Panay Bicudnon
Mm,
also as well. Um,
yeah,
like for them, they adopted it as like the god of good graces
mm-hmm.
also.
Yeah,
So like you see those influences.
yeah. So you see this a lot, and it's very more of like, I feel like a lot of our ancestors saw what they wanted to adopt and just
Yeah.
pick and chose what elements they want to
Yeah.
incorporate into their own beliefs. But yeah, it was diverse, and yeah. it's hard to answer the question in a
Or there
simple.
wasn't, yeah, there was no like
Yeah.
prominent, like even then, like in terms of like animism, I wouldn't really call it a religion
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they didn't really follow any like rules or
Yeah.
dogmas. It was just more of like the closest comparison I could think of is like Shinto. Like
Mhm,
most people know
mhm.
what Shinto is,
Yeah.
like in terms of
Yes.
like the kami, like so many different spirits, and then like the
Yeah.
kami themselves includes like spirits of the land, like nature, and then the
Yeah.
deities. It's very very similar in that type of concept.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like there
Yeah.
wasn't really any like prominent religion at the time.
That's true. Yeah. And I guess a lot. It's just that a lot of Filipinos are familiar with Christianity. That's why, or in Islam, so they're more
Yeah.
familiar with the more what do you call this? Abrahamic religions that are very like there's rule based and
Yeah,
there's
like
like
very structured,
yeah, yeah,
basically.
are yeah, it was less structured and more fluid.
Yeah. And then again, it also depends on like where you were in the Philippines.
Yes.
Like there's
Yeah.
different beliefs in, localized,
Yeah.
basically.
So yeah, this is a follow up comment from um, Shade. So yeah, the religion in Philippines was a lot more decentralized prior to Islam and the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more of a personal practice.
Yeah.
A lot something I want to mention too in terms of religion, studying from a historical perspective. What I found too is that um, a lot of the families pre-colonially, or at least during the time of contact with Europeans, are
Mhm.
multi-religion families, multi-belief families, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of like marriages between like a Muslim and a
Yeah.
someone who
And
practices
you saw that
Hinduism.
like in
Yeah,
for example, Tondo
yeah,
also. Like that's actually how like Islam kind of came because of through marriage
yeah,
from
yeah.
like
So
the royal families in
mhm,
Borneo.
yeah, so there's a lot of like multi belief. I don't know how to say it. Multi-religious.
Yeah, there is
There's
a word
a
for
word for
it.
it. Yeah, there's a word for it. But yeah, families who have different religious beliefs within the same family, like immediate family, like the mom and the dad have different religions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the ruling family in Manila and Tondo, like
Mhm.
Lakandúlâ, Tondo, and Matandá of Manila, they're actually siblings.
Mhm.
And they're the grandson of the the Sultan of Brunei. And but anyways, one of them is Muslim, and the other one
Yeah.
was raised Muslim. So Matanda was Muslim, and
Mhm.
then his younger brother Lakandúlâ was raised as a Muslim, but he chose to convert back to the pre-colonial Hindu Buddhist with a mix of animism
Yeah.
beliefs of Tondo, because Tondo has been the traditional well, a lot of oral traditions mention Tondo as the capital of Luzon back then, as the most important
Yeah.
city in Luzon back
Like
then.
the trading center,
Yeah,
basically.
and it
That's
makes
where
sense
like
because it
all the
also yeah, it's the center of everything that's going on back then. So
yeah.
and it so it's also fun to see how the oral traditions mention this, and then suddenly you find a Laguna copper plate that says that that's
Yeah.
also where the seat of power was.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that's how we know because of the
mhm,
Laguna copper
yeah,
plate. Because like, you wouldn't think that, oh, it was actually in the Philippines because it was a
yeah,
Kawi script. We didn't
yeah,
actually use the Kawi script, like,
yeah.
you know, but we know it because they actually listed
Mention it.
names of
Yeah,
certain places. So
yeah.
yeah.
This is where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we know because like, they're not in Indonesia. They're not named
yeah.
places in Indonesia or Malaysia. Like they're here.
That's true. Yeah. We're approaching our third hour. Let me double check our fundraiser. Oh wow! So when last time I checked, last time I gave you an update, it was 7,500.
500 something. Yeah.
Now it's 7,700.
Oh, wow.
So there's not good in math. So five, six, seven, like
Yeah.
around 200 that you went up. Or so I guess since
Yeah.
comparing it
And
to when we started,
within like the last, I guess, like hour
yeah,
or so, it went up
yeah.
by like 200. It's quite
Yeah, so overall, in the last 3 hours that we're doing this now, it went up by 678 bucks.
that's good.
Yay!
Okay.
Thank you. That's a lot of help for
Yes.
our
Yes.
folks back in the Visayas and Mindanao and Palawan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yay!
Oh, and also, like, I just want to speak, like,
Mhm.
just spread the word, like
Yeah,
social
yeah,
media, because, like,
yeah.
again, like, I don't feel like they're getting enough
It's not
coverage,
yet. Yeah,
you know.
it's not as
So
much coverage as previous ones. That's
yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
but I feel like okay, like I feel like one of the major reasons also is because like ABS
yeah,
CBN, like they're gone, and they were
yeah.
like one of the major like on the
The
ground, like giving
yeah
news reports and things like
the
that.
local stations. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's true. Yeah, they have more infrastructure out in Mindanao and Visayas. So yeah,
yeah, but yeah, get the word out there, let people know
yeah.
that you know uh these people need help.
Yeah. And not just today or this week too. Because it's still a long road to recovery
Yeah,
too.
it's a long, long road. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people have lost their homes and
Yes. Let me
yeah.
double check the numbers. I remember because we had a meeting yesterday with
Mhm,
folks in the Philippines. They gave us numbers. I just can't remember it right now. But
mhm.
it's around like 400,000, almost 500,000 people who were
Yeah,
displaced and lost homes. Yeah. But yeah, we raised what did I say? 700,000? Not 700,000. That's a lot. $678 within the last 2 hours and
that's
52
good.
minutes.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Yay. I want to keep going, but it's been 3 hours.
It's
So
up to you. Like I said, like I slept before this, so I'm actually not
yeah,
that tired. But yeah, it's up to you and everybody else, I guess.
yeah. I haven't actually eaten dinner. I cooked dinner right before this, but I wasn't in
Yeah.
between it. So I'm probably gonna go eat dinner in a little bit.
Oh,
But yeah, if you have
yeah,
any last questions, folks, for watching us, and I'd love to have you back too in
yeah.
future
I will let you back.
streams. Yeah, we can schedule more because it seems
Mhm.
like there's a lot more questions for people. There's always a lot of questions out there, and it's good that
Yeah,
people are asking questions because it means that they're interested in
they're
learning more.
interested.
Yeah, the more questions we ask, the more answers we find.
Hmm.
So if you have any last few minutes questions for Ate Ligaya, um, let us know.
Yeah.
uh, oh, I already answered that, the Maya one. But I'll highlight a comment that I saw
Mhm.
earlier from Key to My Heart. Honestly, I feel uplifted because these mythologies, folklores, beliefs of our ancestors, and the likes remain preserved. I thought it would be vanished because of our new generation nowadays. Yeah, Jos Mabalos is thank you in
Mhm.
Bicolano.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you, then. Thanks to you too for appreciating it. And yeah, the more we are exposed to it, the
Yeah.
more people are, learn about it, and the more people um, learn to preserve it. And if you want to follow Ate Ligaya, the socials are now on screen at Pinay
Mhm.
Writer, the Pinay Writer on Instagram and on TikTok, right?
Mhm.
It's the same
Yeah. Same thing.
handle. Yeah. And then the website and blog is the pinaywriter.com. And there's the older one, the Pinoy Culture on Tumblr.
Yeah. You really wanna
Yeah. Yeah.
dig deep into all that.
Yeah. Um, what was it? There was a book by a friend of mine.
Mhm.
It's over there. But a friend of mine from UC Davis wrote a book about Pinay Guerilyeras in World War II.
Mm.
And there's a chapter on, historic and legendary women in the Philippines
Yeah.
who were warriors. And
Yeah.
one of the references was actually your blog. I was like, wow, I know this blog.
Like, I actually still get messages sometimes, like, on Instagram or wherever, like, they don't realize I'm the same person who ran that blog, but then
Yeah,
when they realize it, like, "Oh, it was
it
you!" I'm
makes
like,
yeah. Yeah, I remember I thinking like, oh my gosh, this
the
is
same
that other guy.
person."
um, Someone's asking, should we have more literature of Filipino mythologies? Way more interesting than Florante Laura. Yes. The quick answer is yes. We should have more.
Yes,
We need more.
we need more
Yeah.
literature. And again,
Um,
like, that's how it, not only helps, like, preserve, these mythologies, but also helps, like, other
mm,
people find out about it.
yeah. 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 We need, really, really need more. Yesterday, my guest last night was a friend of mine from
Mhm.
California. She's a mother and an author,
Mm.
children's book author. So
Mhm.
we were supposed to talk about water deities, But a lot of since they found out she's like a self-published author,
Uh-huh.
she set up her own publishing firm to publish
Oh.
stories from her own childhood. She's from
Uh-huh.
Bukidnon.
Oh, okay.
So the conversation shifted from deities to just her publishing journey.
Oh.
So yeah, so she was just mentioning like there's a
Mhm.
it's we were talking about how it's not a competition for a lot of the writers. It's more of like
Yeah,
we
no.
support each other. The more stories of our
Yeah.
people that are out there, the more people know about it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually I actually recently got it, I think, yeah, yesterday or the other day. It's called the Divine Coloring Book, right?
Mm,
I'm not sure if you heard about it, but like it's basically this coloring book. It actually can help like little kids like know about our
yeah.
mythology. It has some of our deities and folklore
Yeah.
in it.
Oh yeah, I think
I haven't opened it yet.
I think I know what you're talking about. I've seen
Yeah, like
uh
it came in. Actually, yeah, I think it just came in yesterday or the other day, but I haven't like looked
yeah,
through it. But like, if you have small kids or whatever, or you
yeah,
know any small kids to help them like learn our folklore, you
yeah.
can give them the coloring book, and I think it has also like some like a small passage to read
Mhm.
in the book, so like they know what they're looking at.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah,
I remember seeing one of their artwork that it's like, oh, that's a I think it was it Maguire that they have in there that I was like, oh, cool, this is
mm,
this is great that it's included in there.
yeah,
But yeah, I forgot. But yeah, I remember seeing. I don't have a copy yet, but I remember
yeah.
seeing.
I haven't had the chance to look through it yet. I was actually going to make a post on
Oh,
Instagram
cool.
about it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the author sent that to me actually. He's like, "Do you want to?"
Okay.
Yeah, so I
That's
was like, "Oh
nice.
yeah," I'm like, I'm interested in that book. I
Yeah.
was interested in that book, but like I didn't have any kids or like know any like younger
Yeah.
kids who like might appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, but I'm excited to actually look through that book.
Yeah. So follow Ate Ligaya on Instagram, and you'll
Yeah.
eventually see her post about it. Another question: can it be true that? Wait, no, that's. Oh wait, ancient Filipinos were people looking for freedom from the Majapahit kingdom. That's why they go Maharlika. Um, that's something that is a complicated thing to answer. It needs more research. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'll probably make a video addressing this question in the future because it can't be answered in a few minutes. But yeah, thanks for asking. This is but yeah, Maharlika means it's not. It doesn't mean nobility. It doesn't mean royalty. It doesn't mean kingdom. It means a status or a social class of former slaves who were
Mhm.
freed because it comes from the same word as freedom in a lot of different Austronesian languages and Hindu. I mean Sanskrit. Yeah. So in Kapampangan it's Mardika. I think in it's Marandika somewhere in Mindanao. But yeah, there's like a lot of different cognates. It all means like free people. So yeah. Um, Here's another question that we can answer in the next couple minutes. How do the ancient Filipinos view the moon sun eaters? Do they see them as malevolent deities or good deities? So I guess Bakunawa.
Mm.
Course, Bakunawa.
Like it
It
depends
depends.
also. It's both. It depends on
Yeah,
how, in terms of like the eclipse, obviously you want the moon, you want the sun.
yeah,
So they would, scare off Bokunawa or
uh-huh,
whoever. Um, but yeah, like
yeah,
they were not technically like bad or
yeah,
good per se. Like I don't really like using that because it's like
yeah,
the connotations of like they were evil or they're bad. It's
mhm,
more like monotheistic,
yeah.
like
That's true. It's
Abrahamic type of thing. Like
yeah,
they didn't really like see like they were really really bad or really really
yeah,
good. It's just they were just kind of neutral, whatever.
yeah. The beliefs back then were not black and white.
Yeah,
Not all the.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for answering. A comment. Loving this live. Salamat po.
Thank you.
Here's a question. What do you think of writers creating stories that incorporate our myths, cultures, practices? Is it important for one to be as authentic and accurate as possible?
So, like in terms of like cultures, it doesn't have to be as authentic. It depends on like
Yeah,
what you're writing. In
yeah,
terms of like it depends on what your story is. So if you're
yeah,
involving like for example the Dawata,
yeah,
um again, like there are some people who actually are practicing these beliefs now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who might take offense. Like
Yeah.
if you do write something that, you know, say for example, like you take the Diwata and you make them like evil or something,
Mm.
and you try to
Yeah.
kill them or something, something like that.
Yeah.
Like you might take offense. It depends. You might, people might take offense on that.
Mm.
Especially nowadays. Like it doesn't have to be 100%
Yeah.
authentic, but you do have to take into account like
Yeah.
that. And then
Yeah.
also in terms of like respect to toward our ancestors,
Yeah.
our cultures, our folklore,
Yeah.
and, things like that.
As long as it's done with respect.
Yeah.
I think respect is a huge thing. So if you want to write these stories, you have to be respectful from the source of it, not just the written ones, but like what
Yeah.
Ate Ligaya said. So a lot of people still practice this. And
Yeah.
even the
Even
one, yeah,
for example, even with the Babaylan, like a lot
mhm.
of people think the Babaylan were completely
Yeah,
gone
no,
after colonization. No, they still exist. Like
yeah,
they still practice, not just with like the indigenous groups, like
yeah,
they're still around.
yeah,
No, so it's not like they were absolutely gone.
yeah.
No, so they still practice whatever
Mhm.
and all that.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of practice. A lot of folks still practice it. Even
Yeah.
I'll just share. Even in Pampanga, a lot of people think Pampangas are devoutly Catholic, but a lot of them, older families or elders are actually,
Mhm.
still practices and parts or elements from pre-colonial belief that they do on the side apart from being Catholics. Yeah, so a lot
Yeah.
of them.
Like even like with our healers,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
example,
Yeah,
a lot of that, like a lot of the practices are the
yeah,
original practices. It's just been blended,
hmm,
with whatever faith they practice, but
yeah.
still,
It's still there. Yeah.
it's still there.
So yeah, as long as you're doing it with respect as a core value when you're doing it, then it should be okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
and try to be authentic as you can.
Yeah.
But
Like try to be
it
authentic. Like
it shouldn't
look
stop
like
you.
if like my advice, if you really want to make it, like for example, a story that's inspired by
Yeah,
pre-colonial history and culture, look at the historical text
mm,
and academic papers that have written
yeah,
about it, um, to try to get it as authentic as
mm,
possible. Like there could be whatever creative
yeah,
ideas that you want to incorporate into the story,
yeah,
but if you're gonna say that it is based on pre-colonial,
yeah,
like or pre-colonial ancestors or pre-colonial culture, you do have to at least do some research.
yeah. Research and respect.
Yeah.
2 R's. Yeah. Um. I guess related to this question, is it okay to mix mythologies from different multiple regions? And a follow up comment is that I'm Philippine American, so I'm worried about
Mhm.
misappropriating mythology.
Yeah, I actually get this question question sometimes. So it's like I know there's a lot of people both in the Philippines
Mhm.
and the diaspora. They don't really know what
Mm.
their ethnic group is,
Yeah.
because some people like they maybe like migrated to different islands. So
Hmm.
like a couple of generations, they don't really know where they came from, or in the diaspora, they don't really talk about where they came from. So some people don't even they know they're Filipino, but they don't know what specific
Hmm.
like ethnic group they come from. So I have some people saying like they don't know where their family comes from, but they want to
Yeah.
work with mythology. So like
Yeah.
my answer to them is like again, do the research. Um, don't just look at blogs. Like even in my own thing, like what I write, don't just
Yeah.
look at what I say or whatever.
Yeah.
Look at the sources, like
Yeah.
credible sources and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and you could look into the mythologies in terms of like mixing them though, like for example there's some people who are asking, can you mix like the Tagalog and Bisaya
Hmm.
in terms of like worshipping them. I always say it's very like it can be problematic because
Hmm.
historically speaking the
Hmm.
Visayans and the Tagalog kind of like hate each other. Like there was just, like this like negative
Yeah.
tension between the two, like even back then, like they even had insults to each
Hmm.
other. So
Yeah.
it's like if for someone who's like actually doing these practices,
Yeah.
if they made like an offering to a Visayan deity or a Tagalog deity, right? They might not appreciate it. So like for myself, I work with both, belief systems. So I do it
Mm-hmm.
separate. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like, give offerings to like say for example like Lakapati and then with another Visayan deity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's a difficult
It's
balancing act you need to do if you want to mix the mythologies. Yeah.
yeah. But like I always tell people like try as like much as possible to try to figure out where your family comes from.
Yeah.
Um I
Yeah.
know for some it's just impossible, but
Yeah.
that's like the first thing I tell I tell
Mm-hmm.
people like look at your ethnic background, see what
Mm-hmm.
your ancestors
Yeah.
once believed in, worked with,
Yeah.
etc. Because I know there are some, for example, they'll look at like Bagobo, Manobo,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll work with that, but they're not, they don't have any connections with
Yeah.
Mindanao,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
So it's just more like just basically respect
Yeah.
in terms of that.
Yeah, and like I like what your advice about research. So the thing is, when you actually do your research, you actually discover a lot of things. Like
Yeah,
you may find out where your family is actually from in the
yeah.
Philippines. Yeah,
Ask family members if you can.
yeah,
All your elders. Um, like even distant cousins, distant
yeah.
titas, they might know
They might
something.
know. Yeah, they might know something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another like if you really don't know, like if you really cannot get any
Mm-hmm.
information, there are DNA tests now, like ancestry, DNA and 23andMe.
Mm-hmm.
They don't tell you the specific like
Yeah,
ethnic group, but
yeah,
they can
yeah,
tell you the specific region. So
yeah.
like I've actually done both tests. I feel like ancestry is a bit more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it tells me that my mom's side of the family are from the Western Visayas. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of like can pinpoint where, like what
Yeah,
region in the Philippines to help you.
yeah,
Um, and then who knows, like if someone who is related to you distantly, you might
yeah.
find like information like
Mm-hmm.
family history. That's actually happened my mom's side.
Yeah.
Actually, like there's a distant relative. They have the same family name, and
Mm-hmm.
it turns out like my great, I think it was like third great or second great grandfather. That's how we're related because they
Yeah.
had like a family tree.
Ah,
And then
okay.
I know, and from that family tree, I know someone who was listed in that family tree
Yeah.
that I know for certain is from in mine.
Yeah.
So I kind of like extended it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, ask all your family members and you know
Yeah.
that.
There's a lot of knowledge out there that are just sitting there that you just need to ask, and you'll find out.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
and then
is
like
now.
folklore as well. Also,
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. Folklore is a
like
lot
if
of people.
you use,
Yeah, you just need to ask the elders. They know. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Okay. So we're actually 3 hours now. So as much as I want to stay, we can
Yeah.
have Ate
You
Ligaya
need to
back.
eat and I need to
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. So it's midnight. Where
Yeah,
Ate
it's
Ligaya
midnight.
is,
We're
and
going at 1 a.m. almost if we
yeah. So thank you for everybody who joined us tonight, today, wherever you're
Mhm.
watching.
Yes,
um,
thank you.
and yeah, so hopefully our discussion today helped a lot of you learn more about our roots in the Philippines and inspire you to dig deeper and learn more. Like what we've been saying, like talk to your elders, talk to your family, talk to your cousins.
Yeah,
Yeah, so um, homework for you all is to talk to your elders, find out more
yes,
about your family traditions or oral literatures, the epics that might have been passed down, or even short stories from your elders, and
yeah.
document them as much as you can so we
Document
can,
them.
yeah. Because my thing is that if you document it today, historians 10 years from now, 20 years from now will be so thankful that you documented
Yes,
them.
yes.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, we found this piece of information. Like it was recorded.
Yeah. Imagine if the Laguna Copper Plate where they did not record the payment of the debt, we wouldn't know that we had that writing
No,
from
we wouldn't.
the year 900. So yeah,
Yeah, and it's something like they wouldn't even think of. Like it's just
yeah,
debt, like just writing off a debt. But now we
yeah,
know, like they did
It's like
use
a
it.
receipt, actually. Like,
Yeah, and
okay,
then
he
also
paid the debt.
they use the calendar system as
Yeah,
well. So it's like,
yeah. Okay, I'll highlight some of the comments now that we're closing up.
mhm,
Ate Ligaya, and I learned a lot. Maraming salamat po. Yay!
thank you.
This one's fun. Psst. Hoy. Just want to say thank you po, Ate Ligaya, for staying up late for us West Coasters. Yeah, thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for staying this late.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so maraming salamat again to everybody. Shade, thank you for answering my questions. Daghang salamat po. Lilibet comments, an interview with the Babaylan would be cool. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I'll put that in my to-do list. My homework. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us. Again, if you want to follow Ate Ligaya at at the Pinay Writer and the PinayWriter.com. So you can find more about
Yeah.
and you're also very active in a lot of the Facebook groups.
Oh, yeah. I think like some people might actually even be in the
Yeah.
Facebook group. Like originally it was called Anito, but
Yeah,
now
yeah.
I took off Anito and it's now just called the pre-colonial beliefs and practices of the Philippines. Like it's a
Yeah.
private group. So yeah,
Yeah.
some of you might be on it.
Yeah. So if you have questions, you may tag Ate Ligaya over there. Because a lot of the
Yeah, like
Filipinos
I'm
are
trying to
active
be
on
more
Facebook.
active in Facebook because like I'm not really as active on Facebook. I'm
Yeah.
more on like Instagram. Like that's where I
Mm.
am.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I know like there's a lot of Filipinos on
Filipinos on Facebook.
Facebook
Yeah.
and in the groups and communities. So
Yeah. Here's a comment. I think the Philippine schools should teach more about ancient religions. We can always separate them from religions like Catholicism and Islam, just like how
mhm.
the Greeks look at their myths now. Yeah, that's true. We
Yeah,
should. If you actually look at it in Western countries, they are very well versed in Greek mythology, and we can do the same thing. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us again. Oh, yeah, Rio said loving this live. Salamat po. Yeah, maraming salamat. Daghang salamat. Diyos mabalos. Any last words or any closing thought for us
um,
tonight? And would love to have you back in future.
yeah, like I would love to be back. Yeah, just thank you for having me here.
Yeah,
And thank you for everyone for watching and for those who donated. Thank you.
yeah. Yes, thank you for the donation. It's over almost $700 now. That let me actually double check again before I let you
Yeah,
go. But
final count.
yeah, while I do the final count, there's a question that we might be able to answer. Last question
Hmm.
for the night.
Is there a book with collection of folklore tales from different regions or book listing? Um, Not that I know of. There are a couple of books that talk about folklore, but not like in terms of listing all the deities, mythological creatures. Speaking of book, I think you did mention it earlier when you introduced me. But yeah, like
Oh yeah.
I have been writing this book for like a few years now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I have been writing a book on that. But at the moment, there is no, not that I know, like
Mm.
a book that literally lists all the different deities based on like the ethnic group and then
Mm.
the creatures and things like that. Not,
Yeah.
that's been
Not
published.
yet.
Yeah, but will be because I am
Yeah.
actually working in a book like that.
Yeah. Yay. Thank you for the question
Yeah,
and good luck with the book writing.
yeah.
Exciting
I'm
book.
actually almost finished with it. Actually, like I was
Oh
hoping.
yay.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping I could publish it like end of next year or beginning of
Oh cool.
2023. Yeah. So
That'd be nice.
yeah, like I said, like I've been writing it for a while now. I
Yeah.
think like, even from our Tumblr days, like that's
Yeah.
when it started.
It
But
takes a
yeah,
while. Yeah.
it's a lot of information because
Yeah.
a lot of people think like all the in all the knowledge is gone.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
not.
you have to really
Yeah.
sift through everything
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
put it all
So true.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Salamat. Salamat again for
Yes.
joining us tonight
Thank
and
you,
we'd love
everyone.
to have you back. And the final count is still 7,709.97 cents. So that's
Mhm.
I did my calculator. It's $678.88 in the last 3 hours and 15 minutes. Um, yeah, and then if we add, wait, what happened to it? I lost it. uh, yeah, if we add what we got, last night and the other night. It's oh cool, $1,400. The last three streamings.
Oh, good.
Yay!
Very good.
That's a
Oh, if you
lot
see
of
someone
oh
behind me, my
yeah.
brother's coming through.
Oh hello. Welcome home. Okay.
Nice. We're actually robbing the house.
Oh, shush.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone again. See you. Yeah, I might stream live tomorrow too. I'm not sure what time yet, so stay tuned. I'm on my
Mhm.
social media. I'll announce tomorrow. Still confirming if I have a guest tomorrow or not, and what time we'll be able to stream tomorrow. But yeah, Maligayang Pasko for those who celebrate Christmas. And Maligayang Pasko in Tagalog. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Salamat, Ate Ligaya.
Thank you.